Probably. Yeah, they are. Thank you. I'd like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting is duly called, and notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6 p.m. While we no longer are limiting the number of staff and community members as in-person attendees, we respectfully ask that you maintain social distancing and other health protocols while attending this evening's board work session. In addition, we ask that all those in attendance conduct themselves respectfully at all times during this meeting. Any outbursts or disruptive behaviors may result in your removal from the board meeting. The following board members are in attendance: Tracy Miller, Allison Lasan, Catherine Sells, Dr. Buddy Bonner, Angie Cox, Christy Hassett, and Jenny Prosnick. I'll open us in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for an opportunity to come serve in LISD for November 1st, 2 months left of the year. I pray, Father, for the needs within our staff and within our community that are known and those that are unknown, Father, that there are people that are hurting in many ways, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and, Father, that you'll just protect them. We pray that you'll guide us this evening, that we'll do the work that we're here to do, that our staff will be prepared and be comfortable as they present to us, and that if we make any decisions, we make them in the best interest of our community as a whole. In Jesus' name, amen. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees. Well, let's do the vision statement, mission statement, cornerstones. Dr. Rogers.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Miller. So the four cornerstone tonight is community engagement. I actively involve community partners in campus and district initiatives. And tonight you're going to hear some great presentations, some of which deal with that. The I statement is recognize and appreciate community contributions to schools, students, and district.
Thank you. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out speakers cards. In accordance with district policy, only speakers cards addressing items on tonight's agenda will be acknowledged. No person shall exceed 3 minutes. The board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. There are no speakers cards. Dr. Rogers, Superintendent Report.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Just a couple of good news items. As I know the board has seen, it's been a good week as far as this past weekend. We had all four of our 6A bands advance to the finals of area contests, and then 3 of those advanced to the state next week. So great job by all 4. FYI, if you hadn't seen, all 5 of our volleyball teams made the playoffs, so congratulations to those teams and coaches. And then we have one more week of football season left, and 3 of the teams, Marcus, LHS, and Hebron, are for sure in the playoffs. And Flower Mound plays Coppell. If they win, Flower Mound's in the playoffs. And the Colony plays, I can't remember which Frisco school, but Reedy, I think. And if they win, they're in the playoffs. So it's been really a great showing by our kids, and just appreciate all the hard work that they and their coaches and directors have done. So when you look at what I read as far as community involvement, I do have a statement I want to just read regarding, where our board and community is in response to something that happened recently. So if if you'll just bear with me. In Lewisville ISD, we strive to have respectful and civil conversations about difficult topics, even when we can't reach common ground or consensus. It saddens me, and I know I speak for the board, that recently in the news we've seen cases of teachers, administrators, and board members being threatened and even assaulted. As a result, you may have also seen that the National School Board Association, or NSBA, made the surprising decision to reach out to the federal government to ask for help ensuring the safety of public school officials. In that letter, NSBA made a statement that the board, LISD board, district administration, and Texas Association of School Boards strongly disagrees with, where it states, saying those threats could be the equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism and hate crimes. I've had discussions with our board about this egregious statement. On the contrary, LISD believes parents are our partners in the education of their children. We have always remembered that parents are their child's first teachers. The NSBA did realize its grave error and recently communicating, saying in part, we regret and apologize for the letter, and quote, there was no justification for some of the language included in the letter. We are certainly glad to see the organization takes ownership of its mistake, but it is important for the board and I to reiterate how much we value the dialogue we have with all the stakeholders we serve. Our schools are reflections of our communities composed of students and families with diverse needs, experiences, thoughts, and opinions. We will absolutely continue doing our very best to meet the high expectation of our communities, that our communities have for our schools and that we have for ourselves. I'm confident that regardless of the challenges we face, by working together, we can find solutions to whatever comes our way. So I just wanted to make that statement with what was in the news recently and be clear about our thoughts on that.
Anybody have anything they want to say? Thank you, Dr. Rogers, for doing that. We certainly echo those sentiments. Invite people in. We think in our audit this year, we had an opportunity to maybe reduce public comments, so we chose to keep public comments high and be available to our community, and we certainly want to do that in a safe and secure environment and look forward to the input that we receive going forward. And so thank you for your diligence on that and being mindful. I guess it's Dr. Rapp, DAP update, one of our very, very special requests.
All right, so yes, thank you, Mr. Miller. We are happy to provide this update to you this evening. I'm going to invite Ms. LaRock and Mr. Wachinski, Mr. Kosh, and Ms. Clark to come on up for the presentation. While they do, you've got a copy of the presentation in your folders as well. I know many of you like to make notes as they go throughout their presentation time. The first thing I'm going to ask them to do after they get seated is just go over introductions. I know that we know them all, but just to be sure that everyone knows who's speaking. And, of course, Ms. LaRock and Mr. Wachinski recently tackled last January the move of DAEP to the Student Success Center at College Street. And this is one of the first opportunities to thank them as well publicly for all of their work in that successful move in the middle of the school year. So, Mr. Kosh, would you start with introductions, and then we'll take it from there.
Jeffrey Kosh, Chief Executive Director of Student Support Services.
Shonda LaRock, Principal at the Student Success Center.
Rebecca Clark, Executive Director of Student Services.
Michael Wachinski, Associate Principal, Student Success Center, DAP Administrator.
All right, and Mr. Wachinski will have a lot of the speaking parts tonight, but they will all take turns. Ms. LaRock, you've got the pointer there in front of you, too. You might want to pass that down his way. I'm going to start with the first few slides before I hand it over to Mr. Wachinski. The presentation tonight is focused on DAEP, not teams, even though they now reside in the same building. One of the important things to remember is we brought forward a DAEP program evaluation with Dr. Fitzhugh. That was in December of 2019. Dr. Deaton was the one who led the program alongside Mr. Wachinski at the time, and so they presented on that. The findings of that program evaluation indicated that student recidivism had declined over the 4 years. Students sent to DAEP as a result of general non-mandatory discretionary student code of conduct violations had declined, and the majority of students were able to receive their credits for coursework and stayed on track to graduate. So just a quick reminder there of the findings of that program eval. DAEP began basically from the state in 1995 with the adoption of the Safe Schools Act. And so Senate Bill 1 was what established DAEP. We didn't talk about that much in the program evaluation. We thought it was good to bring that back up, that really prior to DAEP being established in the 90s, students who committed certain offenses or had disciplinary concerns were expelled to the streets. And so DAEP was established as a way to continue education for students in the midst of times where they would find themselves in disciplinary situations. Understanding that safety of the home campuses is of primary concern for parents, DAEP programs are considered part of providing safe schools. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kosh to just talk through some mandatory DAEP placements from the law.
So with the Safe Schools Act, then you have DAP placements probably into two categories. You have the may send or the must sends, or the discretionary or the mandatory. And so this slide right here talks about the mandatory. The bulleted list is not the complete list, but as you can see there, it talks about things about engages in conduct that's punishable as a felony. It's got the Title V felony offenses, which are lengthy in number, but the majority of those are centering around the assault, aggravated assault, the issuing of a false alarm, terroristic threat, and then also students that are registered with the state of Texas as a sex offender. All of the mandatory placements are housed under Chapter 37.006, and we're bound by statute and law as a mandatory placement if those charges are applied to any of our students.
All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wachinski, and he's going to take us through a big part of this information, so thank you for that.
Okay. Go there, please.
Yeah, go back
No.
one more.
I'm good. Am I going the right way? Okay, so when a student is assigned to DAP, home campus works, puts in the paperwork. If something happens on campus, they're going to put that paperwork in. Ms. Clark is going to be looking at that paperwork, and then we're going to get a heads up, hey, the kiddo's going to be coming over here. From that point, they contact me via email, and this is one of the things that COVID actually brought a positive slant to DAP, that we started doing them virtually, and that's allowed for parents to work a little bit more around their schedule. So the student and parent must attend that orientation. From there, we talk about the rules and everything that goes with DAP. Now, we do offer it Monday through Thursday. We don't offer it on Friday because that's when I'm doing petitions with students and stuff. But we do it both in English, we do it in Spanish. Elementary, we do it by appointment because we work them into the schedule a little differently with the elementary kiddos. And then in rare cases, the parents cannot make it. And usually that's when I'm doing them at 7 a.m. with the parents to work around their work schedule. So we try to be there because we really want to make sure that impact is there. But we've allowed the virtual part of the orientation has helped the parents with their work schedule and everything like that. Now, in that orientation, we're going to go over the rules of DAEP. We're going to talk about their dress code, their coursework, transportation, attendance expectations, credit of days where we do the petitions and stuff, process for days reduction, breakfast and lunch procedures, conduct, technology use, discipline, trespass. They get a trespass warning because they cannot be anywhere except at DAP. They can't go to any other public schools or public school events. DAP is the only place they can come, so they're given that trespass warning while they're there. And then we also talk about people they can talk to. We have counselors and mentors that can talk with the kiddos and help them. And I tell them all the time, we want you to be successful here so you transition back to your home campus successfully. And then, of course, we go back to transition back to home campus, and I'll talk more in depth about our BTG program on that and how that's been successful. So with the orientation, and you'll see here on this slide, and you can look on your paper.
Michael, I'm sorry, but can you go back?
Yes, sir. 2 slides? Oh, okay. Oh, on us, I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, yeah, and we've had a lot of changes to DAP. This is my 5th year at DAP, by the way. So in this time, there's been an evolution of some things and some programs that I've found successful over the years, and we've worked with Ms. Clark and others to look at programs that help us. We make sure that we have all the core teachers for those students. So when the students are over there, they do have a core teacher that can help them with their core subjects, especially the EOC-tested courses. We've started doing our ISS room is not called ISS, it's called Reflections, and what that allowed us to do is instead of sending the kid home all the time, we were keeping there and working with them, and there's a lot of discussion and preaching going on with those kiddos when they get in that situation, but they get it solved. We have, technology's been great about providing us with laptops for the kiddos because we do not allow them to have iPads because we do monitor what they do on the technology. And we started using Edgenuity, especially during the virtual time, and then we found that helps us a lot in getting the work for the students instead of us as a staff having to track down that work and get work brought over from home campus and stuff so the students can continue their education. Edgenuity has helped us continue the education in a flowing manner aligned with LISD curriculum, and if Edgenuity is not part of it, then we use a Canvas course. And in rare cases, sometimes like an art class or something like that, they bring over the work manually. So we've done a lot of stuff to help the educational part go. And then all my staff are ESL certified as well. And then, of course, in January, we got a new partner to work with in teams, and they've melded together very well. So I'm going to say the staff has become a good, positive group together. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to skip past that one. Okay, so right here you see on this slide, once they've done orientation, I do enroll the student into a Canvas course. That Canvas course is all the paperwork that we discussed during orientation. So the parents, while the student is at DAP, can go in at any time and look at the rules that we have and also the paperwork and the things that we offer on our campus. So this is all the stuff they go into that we talk about, and if they have any questions, and I tell them. And they have a few assignments they have to do to get information to us and stuff like that. So this is a very helpful thing for both the parents, both middle school and high school. We have a middle school course and we have a high school course. The elementary, we just have a packet that we give to them because it's such a short amount of time. But this has been a real good thing. This came about during the virtual time because they weren't in in-person orientation, so we're handing them the packet of stuff. So now we have it virtually, and that allows them, well, I forgot what they talked about on the dress code, or I forgot about what they forgot about on petition. They can actually go in there and look at this stuff, and that helps them see that a little bit better. And then they sign off on it. And that way we can say, yes, you signed off, you have this information, you can access it anytime. But if you have any questions, look through it and give me a holler. So there's always some myths and facts with any program that goes around. I heard from the start, wow, you have a prison school, or you have a school for bad kids. No, we have a school for good kids that make bad decisions. And we try to encourage them not to make any more bad decisions. So we use restorative, the myths that restorative practices on home campus and proactive behavior management will allow us to do away with DAP. The fact is, students who have mandatory placements must be served. No single strategy or approach is going to eliminate all misbehaviors, all drug use, all felonies, all that kind of stuff. And the Texas Education Code says we have to have it. So it's one of those things we have to have a place for. If we don't have it, then we have to pay another district to house it, and that can get expensive. And then also they say, well, you send them over for little things. No, I would say no. We don't get, we kind of joke sometimes in education, 95% of your time is spent on 5% of the kids. We get everybody's 5% that are having issues. And Ms. Clark is great about being a great gatekeeper on those coming over, making sure they're valid, and saying, no, this is not. But the mandatory ones, they have to go somewhere, and they come over to us. And we get them where they're being successful, and then we ship them back to home campus to be successful. So that's
Another myth that it takes very little for a student to be sent to DAP. This is incorrect. We have a collaborative process that starts at the home campus with the home campus administrator. They are looking at the infraction, and they call Rebecca Clark. Rebecca Clark and that administrator go through all the strategies possible, and they go through the discipline matrix to make sure that they've done the best for that student in this situation. And then from there, Rebecca Clark will call Michael or myself, and we discuss that student coming to DAP and how we can best serve that student. So it is a collaborative decision between many different layers within the district. Also, there's a myth that students do not progress academically at DAP. There's two things we pride ourselves in at DAP. One is the relationships that we build with our students. That is the number one priority that we have. By building that relationship and building trust, we're able to teach the whole student and not just the student academically. But we also remove all of the personal items and distractions from that student so that when they are in the classroom, it's them and their academics. And then we make sure that our academics meet their personal needs from basic academics. We also this year have been able to put in electives. We can serve some electives on campus as well as advanced placement classes if needed.
Sorry. So let's talk about the academic process. Generally, when students come to DAP, they end up actually being more successful because those distractions are away. If the student really wants to, and I tell them, this is a focused, structured setting. If you focus on what's in front of you, things go well, and their grades usually do better to an extent because they don't have that phone with them. They don't have that friend they're always skipping with, or they don't have that other stuff. They have what's in front of them. And we also have a great student-teacher ratio. It's only 15-1, and we also have an aide with it. So it's really 15-2 in that classroom. And we have a special ed teacher that moves in and out of the classrooms to support that. We have a great set of staff that is good at building those relationships. And we all know that kids have a relationship with a teacher. They're going to work harder for that teacher in those situations. Every once in a while, we actually run into a problem where a kid wants to stay there, and we've started running into, you can see in the last week, they're starting doing this misbehavior. And I go, what is up with you? I said, you're not going to be staying here. Yeah, we thought if we messed up enough, we could stay here longer because I like this smaller setting in that regards. I go, no, you're going to go back to home campus and show that you can be successful there, and I don't want you back. So, and those are usually conversations between me, the counselors, the mentors, and the kiddos, and the parents, and stuff like that, and work through some strategies to let them do that. But LISD is lucky that we're a full-service DAP. We only have to, by law, just do the 4 core courses, but we cover all their electives, we cover the APs, the special ed, the GT, the ESL. We give them support in all those areas. So when they come over with their elective, they're still having that elective. They come over with an AP, they still have an AP. I mean, I have teachers that can teach advanced physics. I have a NASA engineer on my campus. We have the people there that can reach that higher level ones for those kids that need that. And then we have those that struggle, but that smaller setting actually helps those kids with struggles and stuff like that. So that structure, some kids need that. They don't need, those distractions. These are some things you can read in your packet a little bit more, but I put a couple of academic testimonials, and we could probably fill this presentation with BTG and academic testimonials. We did have an elementary kiddo last year. She started off 5 days with us, was having problems with fighting with other kiddos on our campus. And this is what the mom wrote to us about, hey, we were real nervous at the start. She was really successful over there. And then she actually went back to her home campus in her first day there. She purposefully did some stuff to come back, and she finished the year with us. And we told her, you're going to have to go back on to middle school and start facing this stuff. And there's a lot of counseling and mentoring going on from there. But the mom just say, thank you. And I want to give kudos to Ms. Lancaster. You'll see that in the statement where she talked about Ms. Lancaster and Ms. Diaz in that elementary room that worked with her, and she felt really comfortable academically. She did well. She got herself refocused, got away from the situation where she felt she had to fight with some other girls, and it worked really well. And then I had a short one from a high school kiddo who was, I think he had like 2 or 3 AP classes, and he did really well. And the dad wrote this, and he was just essentially saying, your belief in him. And every once in a while, we'll hear kids said, well, I'm a bad kid. And I'll say, no, I'm a good kid who made a bad decision. And when they say, you don't believe I'm a bad kid? No, we don't believe that. And the teachers preach that to them, and then they start to believe in themselves a little bit more, and they don't feel like they have that weight on them as well. And it's like you helped build his potential. He felt comfortable there. He did better there because he started to feel, I'm not this burden on my parents because I made a mistake and stuff like that. So those things went well.
Okay, as far as how we address behaviors with students, even though it's a discipline placement for DAP, we still know that they're kids, and that kids make mistakes, and they make decisions that aren't always positive. So it's very, very important for us to address the entire student and to work with everything. We want them to have time to reflect their decisions, to process through their decisions, how those decisions affect themselves and others. So we try to put many things in place to work with those parts of the student as well, not just academically. Our counselors and our mentors do a great part of our DAP placement. Our mentors are anyone on campus. It could be a teacher, a coach, a para. Our SRO has been a mentor. Our CRT in teams has actually come over and been a mentor to one of our kiddos, and even Mr. Wachensky has been a mentor. So whoever that child can trust and talk to and process with is critical as they stay with us in DAP. We also provide information through the home campus on Adapt and Hope, and make sure that those counseling pieces at the home campus help parents realize that they can reduce days there. The DAP petition process, they can lose they can gain 3 days off of their sentence by doing some very reflective pieces and some. It's not easy, but it is incredible to see what those kids have done and some of the work that they've done through the petitioning process. Very valuable. It's incredible. I wish I could share some of those with you. And then every student upon leaving DAP does have a BTG, which is Bridging the Gap. And this is where they own their behavior. They talk about what they've learned in DAP, what they've learned through their mentor and counseling, and how to not make that decision again so they don't come back. The restorative practices, again, is built on our relationship with kids. That's the number one thing we do, is get to know our student and how we can connect with them so that they can talk and process with us. And then our character education is every morning. It's how they start their day off. It's a pretty cool program. I love it. So that is another way. So as you can see, there's many things in place to support them as well as the academic process and giving them what they need academically.
So when we talk about the BTG, that's something that's evolved in my time over with DAP, and I think it's really evolved into a process. And we were ahead of the curve when the state said, hey, you have to have this transition meeting. Well, we were already having them, and it's evolved into a real positive. There's many a time there's going to be some tears at that BTG, some crying and parents and stuff like that. But we meet with the kiddos prior to that. The kids make a presentation, get it ready for it. Parents, home campus, DAP staff is there, and we have that in their last week where they have that meeting. And we're doing it virtually this year, but that also has allowed for home campus to participate a little easier, and it also makes it easier on the parents to be there. But we have to have a state-mandated transition meeting for home campus. So during this home time, home campus is doing the paperwork for that state-mandated paperwork, but we're also having a great presentation. And here we got a few examples coming up here of some of the things. We make them ask questions of themselves, the reason why they're sent. They have to reflect on that, how it affected their parents, how it affected them, and these where the kids really get into it. And then how can I change my behavior? And you'll see some kids thinking, I've got to do something a little bit better. And it's powerful sometimes when they start to talk to the parents. And a lot of times this is where the parents start to cry, like, my child feels bad because of what they did, or they grasp the fact, and that's what you want them to do, grasp the fact that you made a mistake. And I tell the kids all the time, you have to learn how to admit your mistake to fix your mistake so you don't repeat your mistake. And this is one of those things we do. This is a great restorative practice that has evolved over the time, and how it's affected my decision, what the people that it's affected in my life. And he talks about, some people talk about the money, how it made their parents have to bring them there and stuff like that. And then fixing those relationships that they had to fix, because usually there's a break in the parent and the student relationship at this point, because the parents are either mad at the school or mad at the kid or mad at us for that matter, but it fixes the relationship that needs to be fixed. And a lot of times it's with home campus and the student and the parents and stuff like that. You'll see some good positive conversations going, hey, we're looking forward to having you come back. And so the APs are part of that process, and it's always positive there as well. And then we talk about in the future, how can you avoid doing this? And this is where the kids go, I need to be careful who I hang with. I need to be careful what I'm doing and see these things. And I always tell them all the time, because we have goals set in there as well. And when these goals come in, I'm like, is that going to help your goal? Is that friend, that trouble you're getting in going to help? No, it's not. I need to avoid that. So, and it talks about areas they can improve and how they talk and treat adults. These are all from BTGs that the kids have done this year. And some of these are pretty powerful. And then we talk about connections. We want to make sure they have connections when they go back to home campus. So we talk about, hey, who did you connect with over here? Like here's one where Coach Russell, he does a lot of our electives and does the PEs, and a lot of times he gets a lot of the athletes and stuff like that, and they have those deeper conversations. But they're good, positive, upbeat, and these kids like, this is what I needed. I needed to make a connection. And then we tell them, okay, when you go back to home campus, you need to find that connection of that teacher, that staff member that they can see whether you're smiling, having a bad day, or whatever. And sometimes they talked about some of the connections they do have. And every once in a while they'll say, I don't have any connection. I'm my friends. Well, you need to go find a connection that you had at DAP like that over there. And it's not uncommon for us to get a random email, hey, Mr. W., hey, Ms. Lancaster, hey, Mr. Skapar, hey, we want to say, we just want to let you know I'm doing better in the class, things are going well. Hey, please come see me playing the game or something like that. We love doing that stuff. So, and sometimes they have some, they have to list 3 goals, and some of those goals can be pretty impressive, and got somebody wanting to do the Eagle Scout, and then we have another one, I need to be drug-free, I need to be clean. Whatever got them over, they want to fix that. And so their goals are pretty powerful, and a lot of times it's college and finish high school and stuff, and we talk through all their goals, and sometimes their parents are like, I didn't realize that was a goal that you had. And so we start to, it's part of that parent relationship that needs to be fixed as well. Okay.
Just a few slides with some data snapshots. This is showing you a 5-6 year historical plus this current year to date of the placements that we've had by level. So you have the grouping of elementary and then middle and then high school. And one of the things that this graph does show is the steady decline that we have seen in the total number of placements at DAP. That's been through a lot of hard work looking at the placements very carefully. When Mr. Wachinski mentioned that I review those requests, if it's a request for a discretionary placement, I talk about every one of those either with Mr. Kosh or with the chief of schools to number one, be consistent about the offenses that we're sending to DAP for that we don't have to, but also to talk through if that's the best decision in that case. And so that's been very intentional. I think along with using the restorative practices and the work that DAP is doing to reduce recidivism, we've been able to kind of steadily see those drop. This year may be a little different, as we're all seeing. Just kind of a look at what the top offenses are for which students are sent to DAP. Drugs and alcohol continue to be our top category. Something that stands out from all the others, but you can see the other top categories involve assault, fighting, conduct that would be sexual harassment or inappropriate contact or possession of obscene materials. We still have quite a few off-campus Title V felonies. These are offenses that don't happen at school, but the Chapter 37 mandates that there be a DAP placement. And then combining threatening behavior with terroristic threat. And still some persistent misbehavior, although I will tell you when students go to DAP for persistent misbehavior, we look very closely not only at the behavior, but what interventions have already been tried by the campus prior to making that request. And then just the last one, being able to see the breakdown between which placements are mandatory and discretionary over the last 3 years. Mandatory does represent the larger portion of the placements that we do at DAP.
So when we talk about trends and the fact that kids aren't repeating coming back, when we looked in 2019, you can look at how the numbers have gone down, the amount of kids repeating. This year we haven't had any repeats of any students coming back this year at this point. And usually we in the past we've started to get some of those repeat kids that go back to home campus, do some of the same stuff there. So it has dropped down, and you can see the amount of drug and alcohol what we're seeing, and yes, you see it even at elementary school sometimes. And usually when that happens, we have a big block of kids coming over because they took one down and passed it around, and then we got a whole group of kiddos coming over, and it's a good learning experience for them. Like you don't want to do that, but elementary has really cut back on that. But you can see how the numbers have grown, and of course you're looking at 21, 22. Well, that's just into this year at this point, and last year, of course, was the anomaly of the fact that we really didn't have that many students that we would have had with us because of COVID and all that stuff. It was a weird year. So, in summary, I want to let y'all know we're here for the academic and behavior sports of the students of LISD. We want to make sure that during their time, after they've made a bad decision, their academics continue so they are successful with us and they go back to home campus and being successful. The BTG meetings is a great restorative practice, not just for us, but for home campus and the parents and the student. It's a good, positive thing that it's evolved into something I think is really good. And I was really happy that the state mandated some type of meeting like this. And I was always very proud of LISD to be ahead of the curve on that. And we want to make sure that's a safe, structured, distracting-free learning environment. Is it perfect? Nothing is, and we have to, talk with these kids. Like I said, they're that percent that was causing problems on a home campus, and we're trying to restructure how those behaviors, it happens and all that. But APs call me all the time. They call Clark. We make sure it's just not them. They want to make sure they're getting the right placements and the way things are going. Now, some things that we want to definitely look at is you can look at the numbers. We want to look at additional support for drug and alcohol offenses, some type of thing. We're talking about that. Mr. Kaj and I have talked, Ms. Clark and I have talked, and Ms. LaRock and I talk about it all the time. And staff and my mentors, we talk, what do we've got to do to help these kids with this drug and alcohol? Because if they bring alcohol or drugs on home campus, that's pretty brazen. There's a problem there. So I would say if they're doing it on campus, they're doing it probably 10 times as much at home. So there's an issue there. And the parents need help at that point. We want to make sure that they're using the Adapt and Hope that helps the student and parent report. It also gives them a chance to shave some days off. We talk about that, and it's a home campus discussion, and we've talked about and helping make that a little bit better. And then we also want to, right now we've talked about repeat of the kiddos within the year, but we really are starting to research, myself, Dr. Went, and my secretary, Ms. Drew, we're going through the records and looking at those kids that we're here in the 6th grade, we're here in the 7th grade, we're here in the 8th grade, to start cutting down on those kids that repeat year to year and why they're doing it, what's going on, and ways that we can tell the home campus, hey, you're getting this kiddo next year, just going to let you know he's at DAP and this is why. And we don't want them to think, oh, this is a bad kid they're sending. No, he's a good kid. He's making these decisions. This is why we want to give you help and support to meet his needs a little bit better. Because a lot of times they'll say, what we can do to help the kid. He was being successful with you. And I go, well, the structure helped him. So we've got to find a way to get that structure on home campus for that kiddo too.
All right, so, I want to just say thank you again to them for the presentation. Of course, we'll take any questions about this topic. They represent the many hardworking teachers at DAEP, as they talked about, that are working so diligently to make the relationships with kids there and really help them reflect on why have I gotten here, what can I do better, and how can I be better when I go back. And so I really appreciate them for that. But we'll take questions at this time.
Thank you. Dr. Bonner's going to go first, and just so you're not surprised, you're probably going to see us talk about this a couple times this year. So let's hear what questions we have based on some previous and current experiences and your presentation, and then we'll go around and I'll finish it up here. So just ask your questions at will, exhaust them, and pass it on to the next person.
Certainly will not exhaust you, Mr. Wachinski. First off, what a sad commentary on society that drug and alcohol issues are 10 times most other infractions that make it over to the AAP. That's a huge societal problem, and certainly school being a microcosm of society, that's reflected in those numbers. I wish that weren't the case. Secondly, thank you for including the recidivism rates there. That's highly important, and that's a lagging indicator of the job well done that you all are committing. And so I'll close with that. Thank you for the work you do. Much appreciated. Quite possibly the hardest campus position, except maybe high school principal. But I appreciate the work you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bonner.
Ms. Brosnick.
I appreciate the presentation. I have a few more questions than Dr. Bonner. What's the average stay at DAEP?
Generally, the minimum stay is going to be 20 days, but usually we get them about 30 days, and it can range anywhere from 20 to 176. When we get 176, they're placed there until their adjudication is done, and once that court stuff is done, then we start to look at where their days are so they can be reduced. But generally, it's about minimum's 20, but it's usually right around 30. Can you say? For secondary. Yeah. Oh, on secondary. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the secondary kiddos are usually around 30 days. Elementary starts at 5, and that's usually where they start off, just to get their attention.
Okay, and when you talk about recidivism, I want your definition of recidivism, because is it within the same year? Is it year to year? Is it, I was at DAP in 6th grade and then I didn't show back up again till 11th grade? Is that considered recidivism when you present your statistics?
The stuff you saw to begin with that was compiled from the past was the kids within the same year that kept having repeat problems. Because generally they don't come back that often, and we're like I said, we're doing some data mining and looking at those year-to-year kids that repeat. And we have some frequent flyers, but those numbers have gone, and I can tell you in my 5 years there, that number has gone down exponentially. You can see a big drop in the kiddos like, I'm not coming back, Mr. W. You're serious about your rules. I don't want to be back here. And once they grasp the fact that that structure's there, no, I don't. And then there are a few kids that do come back because it's their safe place. They like that structure, and they needed to be away from their other stuff. My bigger concerns is, and as Dr. Bonner pointed out, those kids that come back year to year for drug issues. Those are the ones I really want to look at, and that's kind of why we're doing our data mining, and you can find that. But some of the kiddos we get, it's a year-to-year thing. But we'll have them like a little in elementary, 1 year in middle school. But if it's far off in high school, you have to look what it is and why the reason they're coming over. My bigger concern is those kids that keep repeating for drug issues, drug and alcohol issues. But the persistent misbehaviors, they grow out of it. They generally don't. You don't see the middle school, elementary kiddos, they start to fix their behaviors when they start to mature a little bit. Those high schoolers that come back year to year with drugs and stuff, those are the ones I'm concerned about.
I would agree.
Yeah, especially within the same year, and that's when they come back with more days and stuff like that.
And so I'm going to jump back to that minimum 20 days. In that 20 days, is it feasible to complete HOPE and the 3 days so that their stay is only 12?
I'll speak to the HOPE and ADAPT. Typically, a 20-day placement would not allow them enough time. It takes 3 weeks to complete it, and then, of course, it's the time to get signed up and everything. So what we generally do is if the parent commits to the program, signs the contract, and starts attending, then we'll go ahead and give the reduction, even if they haven't completed it by the time they would be going back to their campus. And then Michael can speak to the
and as far as their petition process, usually it takes a little bit. But 30 days, you can easily get 3 days in. But I have had some students that are really like, I want to get those 3 days off, do it within 20 days. I have had 2 kids already this year that got 3 petitions in because it is effort. And I tell them, as a journalism and English teacher, you're going to do some writing. But it's really reflective. I had one girl write 27 pages, and she had a lot to get off her chest. And it was very cathartic for her. She was like, and her and Mom, I shared it with her mom, and it was like hugging, crying, all that kind of stuff. She goes, share it with my mom, share it with my mom. She needs to know this. But those things, those kids, they put that effort in, and it can really get it done. So.
And to those pieces that they can do, their petitions, is there a reach back out to the parents beyond that orientation, or is it up to the student to know to petition? I know it's in that orientation, but is there ever like a reach back out after 10 days? You know, your student's done really well, I would recommend. Is there anything like that that's done? Generally, the parents that are interested in the petitions, they catch it during orientation, because I have a whole slide in my orientation that we talk about. Hey, I get 3 days off, and those parents are like excited about doing that. But no, every Friday I go into every classroom and I go, hey, who's ready to work on a petition? Who's had 5 good days in a row, no marks, academics, attendance, everything's going really well. You can work on this petition. And the teachers and the aides are really good about, hey, you've had a great week. You get in there and you go listen to this and you go do this. So, when parents reach out to me, but I don't call, because when you're looking at about 150 kids, I can't make 150 phone calls in that regards. But the kids that are doing really well, when we start having those discussions, every once in a while I do talk to the parents and say, they're doing well. Work on the petitions. And then every once in a while I have a parent to go, no, they need to serve their days. I want them to make sure they get it. And some of the kids, I don't want to do the work. I just want to finish my days and get out of here. But some get excited about it. Right now on my desk, because I did a petition meeting on Friday, I've got 5 petitions sitting on my desk that I went through. In fact, before I went into this meeting, I sent an email to a parent, by the way, your kid is not coming back to DAP tomorrow. Their last petition was approved. Go to home campus tomorrow. So, and they like that. That's a good, happy conversation. The kids like it, and they like doing it. So,
yeah, if you can look in some of the petitions that we do, it's really cool because it is about them thinking and talking about their lives, their futures, and stuff like that. So it's a good process. It's an easy process if they really think about it and don't get afraid of writing. And being an old journalism and writing.
Talked about, Ms. Prosnick, though, to that question. We were even talking about it today, a way to help the parents be partners in that petition process. And so that is something that we will continue to improve upon. Mr. Wachinski does a great job getting into those classrooms and talking to the kids, but we'll continue to brainstorm on how to help the parents be a part of that as well.
And I would just add that one of the things that we're going to do to better inform the parents is we're going to make information about the available reductions part of the DAP paperwork that the parent gets from the assistant principal. They get a placement letter, so we're adding a page to that will let them know all of those pieces. Especially with the Hope and Adapt, we want to be sure they know exactly who to talk to, how to sign up to take part in that.
Those are amazing programs, and I want to make sure that parents know that they're available. How long is the orientation presentation?
Generally takes about 30 minutes for me
Okay.
to go through it. So it depends on how many questions and stuff like that. So, yeah.
And Ms. Clark, can you speak to what's a discretionary placement? Like what would qualify? I know what qualifies as mandatory, but what would qualify as a discretionary placement?
Some examples, perhaps. So some of our most common ones would be threatening behavior. Perhaps it doesn't reach the level of terroristic threat, but it's pretty significant in terms of a threat to the school. Also, we've had quite a few, unfortunately, where students bring inappropriate materials, pictures, videos, and distribute those. That would be another common one that we see that's discretionary. Lots of issues with social media, sharing of those kinds of things. So those would be some of our more common ones. Anything that we think is pretty significant in terms of disruption to the learning or safety, or the behavior was so egregious in a school setting that warrants that.
I just want to say I was on the committee with Ms. Sells and Ms. Lasan to rename it the Student Success Center. And we were very deliberate in choosing the word success because we believe every student has has it within them to be successful if given the right supports and the right circumstances. And I thank you for giving them some of that structure that some of our students need and the circumstances for them to be successful. So thank you.
Thank you for highlighting that, Jenny. I think that's an important message to the community. Ms. Sells.
I think Ms. Prosnick asked some of my questions in a different manner, but I'm going to still go through them because I think my intent in asking was a little bit different. And the one thing she did hit on was the communication with parents and guardians after their placement, and especially what if you see a child not being successful, and we hope that all are successful. Is that an immediate phone call to a parent to figure out what else is going on? I mean, you can't solve a lot of their home issues, but I would imagine that not every student that's going to walk in on that campus is going to have the support from home, and maybe even some anger from a parent that their child has to wear uniform and those kind of things. So can you talk about that a little bit?
If they're not being successful with us, we're having lots of conversations, almost sometimes daily. I think it was last Thursday, we'll have virtual meetings with the student and the moms that weren't calling and stuff like that. And you can see the dynamic between the parent and the frustration with the parent. And they're cursing back and forth each other. And I finally go, you don't get to talk to your mom that way. And he goes, I'm sorry, Mr. W. And Mom says, okay, so that's a start. He's being respectful to an adult. And I go, start being respectful to your mom. I actually got phone calls this summer from parents going, would you call my child and tell him to behave at home? We get those because their dynamic is, but we just keep that conversation, give advice to the parents. This is not working, this is working, and let them know. And I think the key for our discipline is consistency. And we try to get that to the parent. You've got to be consistent with this stuff. Be consistent in how you do it and stuff like that, and letting them know that support and stuff like that. I had a conversation with a kid a couple weeks ago. He's being raised by his grandparents, and grandmother came in crying. She goes, he's mean to me every morning when I have to bring him. So I had a meeting with him and said, you don't get to talk to your grandmother that way anymore. I hear it again, we're going to have issues. And so we talked with me and the grandmother and him, and they cried and hugged. And so a couple times she's come and she goes, yeah, he's getting better at home too. But I mean, if they start to get that structure, they start to realize there's some positive things about them. And a lot of times the parents are like, oh, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. And I'm like, oh, no, they're a good kid. They made a bad decision. And they start to believe, well, I can be a good kid. I can start to act good. Because we have situations every once in a while, kids say, well, I'm a bad kid, so I'm going to be bad. I'm going to keep acting bad. I go, no, you're not. But yeah, it's constant conversations with those parents. But, it's a small number. Once they get that structure, when they start, within the first 5 days, they grasp the rules and they start to behave and they start to get it together. And the other kids kind of help flow along. This is a rule. This is where you're going to go. So, but yeah, lots of conversations with the parents when they start to have problems.
Okay, and then do y'all also follow it by campus? Be interested in the numbers of placements by campuses, if those would be available. By campus.
You
The
can
number
provide that.
by campus.
We can provide that information if you wanted it.
Yeah, I would, just for my knowledge and the rest of the board's knowledge, I think that would be important. I also had the average days and the breakdown of that. And then we've talked about Adapt and Hope. How many actually take part? Do you have a number or percentage?
Not as many as we would like. The number has been relatively small. We actually had been having some conversations. I talked with Ms. Crow about that too, getting some updated numbers on that. And we can get those numbers to you specifically if you'd like to see them, but I will tell you it's low. So we've been talking about how can we encourage participation in that. I especially would like to see us make more effort at the campus when students are placed at DAP for drug and alcohol offenses to really push hope, because they can get 5 days, they can get a whole week off their placement, and there's a lot of value in that. We tried to incentivize it by adding the additional days, but I think we need to work on the communication piece to make sure parents understand, whenever a student comes to a level 2 discipline appeal, that's one of the things that we've started talking to parents about at level 2 and asking if they're participating and encouraging that as well.
Okay. I'd like to see those numbers now, and then with the more communication that you're going to do in reference of your answer to Ms. Prosnick's question, and then what your statement has said now, I'd like to see if that increases, just because parents are more aware. I can imagine at an orientation, even a 30-minute orientation, you're going through a lot of emotions, you're going through a lot of processing at that time, and I can imagine parents actually not even really understanding at that point in time. So I think that it's imperative that we keep the communication line with those parents open and very transparent as far as you haven't done this, why, and those type of things. The reflective pieces, and you mentioned this several times, and your description of one or two of them kind of gave me an idea of what they are, but are these things that have prompts? Are they curriculum based? Are they, you're not just going to set a kid down and say, hey, do something that I'm going to judge. So
No,
can you walk me through that process of what a reflective piece looks
if
like?
you'll go back, you'll look when I was showing the examples of it, you'll see why do you have connection. These are questions that they create a PowerPoint. They present a PowerPoint, and these questions are part of those. All these questions that you see, these snippets, these examples of the students, those are questions that the student had to answer and do on that for their BTG, that reflective part. And then on petition, yes, they have an assignment they get from me that starts about their life. Their first petition is they have to write an autobiography.
Okay.
And then it has to include what their life is doing and how they got to this point and everything like that. And it talks about that's where it reflects, well, how did they get to this point? How to do that? And that's conversations they have to have with their parents and stuff like that. And that's that first story that I get from them, because you need to get to know about these kids. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're so good, because we are a campus of educators that want to know more about that kid and what makes them tick and trying to find a way to fix that. But yeah, in the BTG, they are given, this is your prompts that you're going to do for these slides in this PowerPoint. Each one of those questions was actually a slide that they have to do and do that and present.
Can you give her the second petition project they do and the third petition project they do for you so that she can?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, their second petition, they have to talk about their future. They have to research 3 jobs that they would like to do in the future. I mean, really research it and talk about it and everything like that. And the last one is my favorite petition. I love it when they get to it because they have to write their future autobiography. And they project, wow, this is where I'm going to be. And I go, I want it till you're talking about your grandchildren. And they have to also do a timeline graphic of pictures and stuff like that. So the first autobiography, you get to see the baby pictures and all their life that goes from there. Sometimes they don't have baby pictures, but I had one kid who was a great artist. He said, I don't have a lot of pictures because I moved around fostering this and that and stuff like that. I go, well, you're a good artist. Draw them. Wow, some impressive pictures. But yeah, that's their 3 petitions. And it's work, but they go, well, you don't have to go out and research it. You have to talk about your feelings and all this kind of stuff. And sometimes you are communicating with your parents. The only time they really have to research is that second petition, but it's the easiest of them to research 3 jobs. Where's the best college to go to? Where do they get paid? How much it gets paid and all that stuff. And I check their research and we talk about it. And it's a PowerPoint presentation or a Google slide presentation. And it's easy to do, but they do it and they go, oh, that's fun. I like that. I can see where our future is. But third petition is by far my favorite because they have to write their future autobiography, and you can get some really cool, fun stories in there. So.
That gives me some great insight. I've had my daughter, we go on a trip every year, and she has to do her timeline, her life timeline. We've done it since she was in elementary school. And I have different things every year that she has to draw from that could happen at that time in her life. And then she has to redraw her timeline based on what happened. So that makes sense to me. So I understand and I appreciate that very
So we're on
much.
the same page on that. It's cool. You get some really neat stories from the kiddos.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Lasan.
Thank you for being here tonight. So I guess I would just like to hear, so I heard you say, you have maybe around 150 students on campus at any time. What does the makeup look like? Because you've all, how do you group that? What do the classrooms look like? Because you've obviously got elementary all the way up to high school. When you would come onto campus, what does that look like?
Well, they are in separate parts of the building. You're welcome to come by and take a look at the Student Success Center at any time. We give 10-cent tours. I think Mr. Miller's been on it. So the middle school is separated from the high school kiddos. Then we have the high school area, and the elementary is way off in the back wing. And we have a limit of the numbers of kiddos that can be in there. We're limited to really 5 elementary, but every once in a while we've squeezed 7 in there with some other stuff. But then we have other rooms for the high school, so we're limited to by staffing, we're limited to 90 high schoolers. We don't put more than 15 in a room. And now when we get to the overcapacity, that high capacity that we've been in since September, you do have where the numbers require that those kids flow into conference rooms. The teachers' conference period to accommodate their academics a little bit better, to spread them out as much as possible. And then middle school has room for 60 kiddos, but they do those by grade. So the 8th grades are all together, the 7th grades are all together, the 6th grades are all together. But high school is mixed 9 through 12. So.
Okay, so I heard you say you've been maxed out most of the year.
September we hit our numbers pretty quick. On the high school side, we hit our numbers pretty quick on the high school, and it happens. My second year at the AEP, we hit it pretty quick, and it was just an anomaly year last year, and it just happens every once in a while, and then we flow them back and we get them back, and then those numbers drop off. Tomorrow I think we have 6 BTGs that we're doing, so that's 6 kiddos that are going back, and then we do it. But she does a great job managing those numbers, and it's just mandatory. And the numbers that hurt us sometimes are those long-term placements, those 176ers. When you have a lot of 176ers, you're not rotating them through those numbers.
One of the things to add to that is when we do get full over there, we take a look at students who can possibly be returned early based on what their offense was and based on their progress since they've been there. So students who've been very successful, so sometimes we have to make some adjustments if we need to make space for a mandatory placement.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking too is, okay, so what do you do if you get full? Okay.
If I can add too, our teachers, like our secondary high school English teacher teaches freshman English through senior English. And we'll have all levels at one time in one class period, all levels of science in one class period. So they're pretty amazing. So I do want to plug that is, part of their challenge, and that they do meet it head-on, and they're pretty incredible. So that you do walk into a classroom and you see everything as far as the level in an academic area.
Thank you so much.
Says it.
Thank you for the presentation. My first question is going to be academic. So, Mr. Brzezinski, you said that they often do better because of the structure and the forced nature of not being able to talk to anybody.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we use the dashboard or track any way to see how the students are doing at DAP and to make sure that their academic progress is being met? Have we looked at those students in particular?
In terms of if they're completing their classes for credits, or tell me more?
Their time in DAP versus home campus. Have we compared how they're doing academically in both environments to make sure?
Yeah. Not formally, we haven't compared how they, that if they are more successful while they're in DAP, and then if they go back and start struggling. That wasn't a part of our first round of program evaluation. We could definitely add that question into another round, because as we shared, one of the things we do need to study is that year-to-year recidivism, so we could definitely add that as a component for the future.
Okay, thank you. Another is piggybacking also on Ms. Sells. Shockingly enough, I'm greedier. I'd like the data that you have on student groups, and then as well as our special ed students. And then the piggybacking is by campus with student groups and SPED. Definitely, if we can't get it by campus with the student groups, I would like to know year by year how we're tracking with our student groups, so that we're making sure that we're addressing any needs that come up.
We can get it for you by student groups, by campus.
Awesome, thank you. Another one, you won't be surprised. How can we impact our high school students less? Because of our accelerated calendar, it impacts our students. 30 days is really 60 days for the high school students. And so any way we can look at impacting those students less because of our particular calendar for our high school students would be greatly appreciated.
Ms. Hassett, I will kind of talk to that just a little bit. Because they are a full-service DAP, they do offer many of those electives where they don't have to remove kids from classes because they're placed there. So, they look at the schedule, they look at credits maybe that they need moving in, if it's a semester change. And so because they are a full-service provider of those courses, it really does limit that impact.
Okay. I would definitely think it definitely limits it, but it's still 2 days. 1 day in DAP is still the equivalent of 2 days of a high school schedule. So it still impacts our high schools more than it does our middle schools. And so it's always bothered me for the high school students. One of the detriments to our particular schedule. I had a strange question. Last year, TEA said we had to, if we had DAP placements for virtual students, we had to be able to offer DAP virtually for them. How is that going to happen in the future? Have they made any mention as to if we have virtual students in the future, in the high school in particular, do we continue that?
I haven't seen that be part of any of their discussion on the proposed rules around the new virtual learning bill. That would definitely be something that we could keep a watch on. And we'll go back and look through that for your question, but I haven't seen them address. I'm looking at Dr. Fitzhugh just because we met recently about the DAP rules, virtual rules, but I haven't seen it in there.
So if they are DAP, if they are a virtual student, they could be brought to physical DAP.
I didn't see anything in their proposed attendance rules that would prohibit
I
that.
didn't either. Okay,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask. And then,
Because, Ms. Hassett, we could certainly, even for a virtual learning academy student that did something egregious in their virtual class, we could absolutely make them come to in-person DAP. So I agree with Dr. Rapp. I haven't seen anything to change that.
okay. One more question. Edgenuity. So a high school student comes into DAP. Who has to determine where that student is in Edgenuity? Does the teacher DAP have to determine? Because Edgenuity is
Our teachers, the very first thing, once they get the kiddo's schedule and the name, they contact that home campus teacher. And the way the Edgenuity is designed, they can flow in right where that teacher is on that campus. That's kind of the beauty of Edgenuity. It is LISD aligned curriculum and stuff like that, and it flows in there really easy. And that allows that stop and start for certain kiddos. Sometimes we run into the problem, we don't want them going too far ahead and being past their home campus when they go back to that home campus.
Because then they can be bored and it would be bad.
I mean, you're talking about the accelerated. Sometimes they really accelerate. We've been able to accommodate LLC kids who are on really accelerated situations. So we're there for those kids. We meet the needs of each and every kiddo that comes over there, and there is success there. But our teachers reach out to their teachers, and sometimes if they don't think it's going to work Edgenuity-wise, that's when our teachers become co-teachers in that Canvas course, and that works out. And like in rare cases, like an art class or a dance class, it's hard copy stuff that the kids are working on because you can't do a clay thing on the computer. But no, the Edgenuity has helped us not have to chase down work and find out where they're at and be an algebra class where 3 different campuses sent 3 different Algebra 1 kids, and I've got to teach this kid here, I've got to teach this kid here, I've got to teach here. They can flow right into that Edgenuity wherever they're at, and so that helps. It's actually helped us quite a bit. So, but there's still a lot of teaching going on because the teachers can say, okay, you're on this part of Edgenuity, I'm going to pull you up here, I'm going to work and chat with this, and pull there and help there and stuff like that. It gives them able to target better.
Okay, thank you. And I do appreciate your heart for helping kids. I love that you say there aren't any bad kids. I'm not Catholic, but it's like y'all are St. Jude. And I think it's St. Jude. One of them, and is probably one of my favorites. And I love that you have that philosophy and you teach them that philosophy, and keep it up. Thank you.
Okay, well, as kind of Ms. Hassett said, it clearly shows you're for the success of students and not for the disciplinary aspect. It clearly kind of shows by some of the summaries and testimonials you had. So I do have a few questions as well. And first question is, are you fully staffed?
DAP is fully staffed.
Okay, that makes me very happy.
We could use some more. No, we're fully staffed, so
Okay.
we are. So
That's
the
great.
only thing that, we're good to go. I've been lucky to have support from HR to make sure I've got the people I need and the instructional aides and the teachers I have. And we're not just fully staffed, we're staffed really well with some really cool people that care about kids.
That's great. That makes me really happy. The next question was, can you explain what the Character Strong program is, a little bit about it, and exactly how that works?
Yeah, it's a character ed program that we started using, I think, about 3 years ago. It's videos, reflective pieces that the instructional aides actually do the teaching of the character ed from 8:20 to 8:40. They do that character ed in the morning, and they'll pull up prompts and like inspirational videos and stuff like that of people going through, like, last week we were talking about they had somebody who had no arms, no legs, and he was talking about his success at this camp and stuff like that, and they showed the video of him doing normal things in life and stuff like that, and the conversation with the kiddos during that time was like, hey, how would you feel if this and that, and how do you think this impacts his life, and do you see the positivity of this, stuff like that. So it's a program that we pay for every year, and it's a valuable thing that talks about things that they do, and every once in a while we'll tweak it out, we'll make sure the videos are appropriate. We go through and we're not going to show that one, and then we don't delve into things that we don't need to delve into. We keep it very basic and inspirational and talking about their character and stuff like that to be it's a positive thing. So.
Is it shown like we're all students to watch, or how is it viewed?
It's done in kiddo comes. I've got first period class with Coach Russell, so Mr. Draheim's going to come in and those kiddos are going to go in there and do that character ed because it's all we have one person, we float out to everybody, and this is what we're doing high school wise. High school and middle school are a little different, but they all teach together. They get together and say, this is what we're going to teach these. It's a designed curriculum that we go through, and we pick out what we think is best for our kiddos.
Okay. The next question is, I'm trying to read my own handwriting. What is discussed, you kind of talked about it in orientation, but when is the Adapt and Hope opportunities discussed? Is that discussed in length so parents understand really what that program is about? Because it is a phenomenal program. I can't speak enough about it.
During that, I do have a slide, and I talk about, at DAP, I can take 3 days off the time your student's placed here. And then I talk about their academics, behavior, and all that stuff. And then in that slide, I do say, now there's other programs such as Adapt and Hope that are offered in the district, but you need to talk to your home campus AP about that, because that's there. For me to coordinate for the whole district to do the Adapt and Hope for those things. I inform them of that, but that's why we're talking about adding more in the letter I have a letter that they send out to the parents when you're coming to DAP, contact Mr. W. We're going to add into that letter. These are also things that you can do going into to start signing up for the Adapt and Hope there. So we're just, it's a home campus.
We're going to be working with the assistant principals to be more intentional about having those conversations, especially with Hope and drug offenses, as part of the placement conversations with parents. So that is something that, like Michael said, is really a campus focus, and we need to help them be a little more intentional about their focus with that.
Yeah, I would almost like to see like a one-page flyer on just, because it's the same 3 criteria they talk about each week, that you come for 3 weeks. And it would be nice if it was a flyer. I think some parents don't understand that it's a true relationship building between the parent and the child, and it's very powerful. And I think if they broke it out going, okay, this could be some relationship builders, as you mentioned, the grandson. This isn't just about your disciplinary action. It's about your relationship building. I think that would be helpful. I think parents look at it and say, okay, this is just more counseling sessions for us. They don't understand the program. So I would love for the district to put something together so they can understand that up front.
Yeah, we're working on that, and we love it when we see, hey, this kiddo did this family did this, shave off these days, and we're happy to do that.
We have discussed a flyer.
Yeah. Now, the counselors may not be happy because they're like, thanks, Mrs. Cox. Now you've sent 200 more kids to the Hope and Adapt program, but I'm happy about that because it's a phenomenal program. So that's my other question is, can students maybe at the level 2 be encouraged to do the Adapt and Hope program and not go to DAP?
So you're asking if we would consider substituting that for DAP, is that correct?
Yes.
Since I've been in this role, that has not been something that we've done, although the campuses can certainly make that decision prior to level 2. Adapt is something that can be substituted.
Okay.
Most likely not for a mandatory placement, but
Right.
certainly something they could look at for discretionary placements.
Yeah, especially for restorative practices.
Ms. Cox, I might add, when principals reach out about a discretionary placement and we start those dialogues, that discussion on what we have, that's one of the questions I ask. Has Adapt been offered even before a placement at DAEP?
Okay, that's great. That's good to know. So please bear with me, I'm sorry, I just have a few more. How are questions answered for students that say like that need some AP assistance or some help? I mean, I know you say you have some AP on there, but some students just need some extra help and guidance through that. Who is available? Is it just the teacher, or how do they get tutoring help or to keep them academically?
Well, when you're looking, and we have staff that can teach AP. They're getting home campus, they're getting all this stuff, and they're on, and there's AP classes in Ingenuity as well. But there's many a time I'll go into Mr. Reinhardt's class or Mr. Cabrera's class or Ms. Niffin's class, or any of those teachers, and they do have AP students. I've had students over there that have 4 AP classes, and they are getting that support and being able to do that. It's not uncommon to see in a BTG. I grasp this because I was able to sit more one-on-one with the teacher than I was able to do on a home campus. That's where that success comes in, because it is the lower numbers. And I know as a district we can't reduce all our numbers down to 15 to 1, but really a lot of times they get a lot of one-on-one to work with the teacher on that AP subject if they're struggling. If they have any struggles and we see there's a drop-off, the teachers hop right on it. So, my staff is great about helping them, and there's not a day that you look at one of these teachers, they can hop in there and say, yeah, this is where you're at, this is what you're doing, this is how, and they get that. They can do that. Most of the time an AP kid is pretty self-sufficient, but if they do struggle or they're needing help, there's plenty of help there to do that. And it's, like I said, the numbers are lower, and usually that helps them.
Yes. How often do the counselors meet with the students to address ongoing issues? I would hope more often than just a one-time session with the students, especially if they're reoccurring students that are coming back. How often does that
Are
happen?
you talking about the DAP counselor or home
yes.
campus?
The DAP
DAP counselor meets with as many people as she can. Oh, she meets with them all the time, but it's one. Yeah, this is the first year we've had a full-time counselor.
Okay.
So, and she's doing great meeting with them, and we'll have SAC counselors come over, and we'll have some campuses that'll send their home campus counselors over as well. But in that time, if a kid's having struggles, they can put in that counselor card, and she meets with all of them. She says howdy to them. She's out there in the morning greeting with them and meeting and greeting them and stuff like that. And it varies kid to kid. And not every kid really needs, I got to talk to a counselor, but they know. And they come into my office, and I do have other mentors that they sit and chat with. I got to work through some problems. We find the people that they can best meet with be successful. But if I feel it's a major counseling issue, well, yeah, I'm kicking it off to Miss Melendez real quick, and we're having that conversation. And sometimes I'm part of that conversation, and we also let home campus know, hey, here's a red flag. The person's having issues and stuff like that. So there's communication between us, home campus, the parents, the kids. That's always a smooth flow in that regard. We try to make sure that's happening.
Okay, well, the counselor's very powerful, if you ask me, because it's a crucial bond between, not just knowing that y'all care and the teachers care, but that there's a voice and somebody over there to listen to them, just to hear kind of what they're saying, because, there might be more going on than we know. You answered my question about separation of students. I'm just kind of picturing all students together, and it kind of gave me a little anxiety over here, so you answered that question. Thank you. So my last question is, how do we, I can't believe I'm going to say this word, measure, Ms. Hassett, the outcomes academically, like when, say they're an AP student or in special ed or just a student, how do we measure going back onto the campus, how they engage back onto the campus when they've been in for 30 days? How they transition back in? Do we monitor that and have that communication where, okay, they transition right back into their subject matter and we're academically keeping them on track?
I'll take that one. I know that that kind of gets, I know, to your question a little bit, Ms. Hassett, as well, that, of course, in the first program evaluation, our tracking was really based on, are they staying on track to graduate? Because that was really one of the big questions was, are they going to DAEP, then falling behind on their credits, and then not staying on track with their graduation class? So we were able to check the box on, yes, I'm staying on track to graduate, I'm not falling behind in my credits. It sounds like the second round of data we need to analyze is, did I transition back smoothly into the classes that I had? So that's not data we currently have at this time, but we can definitely add that to our next round of analysis.
Yeah, because I think what you wouldn't want is the transition to be where, okay, they're totally not ready for that subject matter again, and then they have fallen behind and behind and trying to come back to the campus.
We haven't seen them fall behind on their credits, but we do want them to transition back successfully to the courses they came to them with and be able to continue with those. So I understand the question, and we would just need some time to look into that.
Yeah. And just my last one is, I love seeing the numbers go down because that really shows that the restorative practices are working on the home campus. So thank you very much for all your work.
Okay, I've got a few questions. I think some great questions have been asked. Let me just preface this with some of these will be questions that I'm looking for answers for. Some of these will be questions for the future. I think we were asked some great questions. Understand that we tend to hear about DAP in unfortunate circumstances. So for me, if I were to share what's in my mind, it's not a sunshine, it's cloudy and maybe stormy. And in fact, most of the time when we hear about someone's reflection of the experience, that's what it is. And so I need to be convinced that these are rosy stories that people are smiling about, because it seems that our kids have, every student in LISD has a name until they get to DAP. And then that DAP has their name, they're not an LISD name, but DAP has their name, and then they come back into LISD where they have a name. And it's interesting, drugs and alcohol are primary drivers. So let me first start asking, so what is it then we're doing on day one about the drug and alcohol issues?
As a district or as a DAP?
In DAP.
In DAP, we treat all the students the same. They're a student that made a bad decision. Regardless of what that is, we don't, you're a good kid, you made a bad decision. We don't get into why you're here, why this and all this kind of stuff. We're consistent you have a consistent set of rules. Our focus is make sure your academics and your behaviors are good for
Okay.
the time you're
So,
here.
Dr. Rapp, who does deal with that issue then? A kid brought drug or alcohol to school. Where is an intervention made then for that student if they're going to be placed in DAP and not on campus? And do we have the proper professionals for that intervention?
Yeah, I think that's obviously a conversation that, in terms of supporting students with drug and alcohol offenses with Ms. Crow, that's been a conversation we've been having about Adapt and Hope. That's been a conversation we've been having about student assistance counselors on the home campus. So a lot of the resources that we put into place fall back on, we put a full-time counselor at DAEP, as you heard Mr. Wachinski say. One of the reasons for that is we saw increased offenses with drug and alcohol abuse. And so that's not the only answer. That's not the only thing that we need to do. But the student assistant counselor support, the DAEP counselor, along with the home campus, looking to see what kind of programs they can provide students as part of the part
Well, when
of
they get the so they get placed, they brought drug or alcohol, Ms. Clark gets a call, they determine it's a mandatory placement. At what point in this journey is there a discussion about, hey, why'd you do this? What's causing this? Is this a problem that you've got? Are you just doing it to have fun? What do we need to do? Or is there some intervention that needs? Do we need the Hope Center in place or whatever? And, when are we having that intervention type discussion?
I'm going to take that for a second, Mr. Wachinski. One of the things I think that's the power of the BTG process, and of course that was new the first time you saw us speak to you all in 2019. So the BTGs really are asking those kind of questions. Why did you get here? What could you have done differently? How did your decisions impact? So that's one of the things that I think's really evolved, and the home campus gets to hear that, the parents get to hear that, and so he may want to expand more, but I think that that's one of the key pieces, that BTG piece, which hasn't existed for all of time.
Could we see some redacted statements about that to show that students have expressed themselves? And
Sure.
And then maybe do some journey maps with students on how they've progressed in this over time?
We can prepare some of the additional BTG examples beyond what was provided just briefly for the presentation today.
I know that, and I support that we need to look at how there's a student that's done nothing wrong, it's pre-DAP, there's a student that's in DAP, and then there's a student after DAP. And I would offer that they're three very different students. What I hear is that they come out of DAP and they're just kind of restored. I would like to see that. I would like to see evidence of that. So show me some cases, again, redacted, to where student went in with some type of felony charge, with some type of drug charge, with some type of THC, whatever it is, maybe battery, hitting somebody, and came out of it, and they were better for it, and that better is measured over time, right? That they didn't end up in a BIC class. They went to DAP, and 2 months later they're in a BIC class. That's not necessarily a changed behavior. It just, we put them in a different environment because the student code of conduct doesn't mandatory place them someplace. They're still as abusive on campus. And so, I'm looking for kind of stories around this. Does anybody know, is 3.32 Education Code 32.006 mandatory within open charters? Are they required to
37.006?
Whatever 32, whatever you had in the document here. 37, couldn't read my own writing.
Not necessarily. Charters are exempt from a lot of the rules that ISDs have to follow with discipline. We regularly get students returned from charter schools, and the paperwork will say they're expelled, and the campus will call me and say, oh, what do we have to do? Do we have to expel? And when we look into it, it was for disruption in the classroom, not something we could or would expel for. So often there are different rules that apply to them.
Mm-hmm. It's my understanding that we didn't accept students out from a charter or another school until they finish their disciplinary placement.
Charter schools often don't have DAEP, so they'll simply say the student is expelled for the conduct. And if it's not expellable under Chapter 37, then we can't expel them. Every now and then it'll be for something that is DAP placeable, like a drug offense,
Right.
in which case we'll convert that to a DAP placement.
Okay. So I think we need some work on that from a legislative perspective. What if the home campus did more of the enrollment? I mean, what if they took more of the ownership of, we're going to place you, and they take more of the registration, ownership, transition, getting the student over there, doing the handoff. Would
Yeah.
there be some benefit to that?
Yeah,
Because
I
it seems
think-
like it's a handoff, where they're out of it, and then they come back in slowly that last week, and then there's a handoff back in.
Yeah, and I will tell you, Mr. Miller, historically, the campus for a long time was very involved in it, and to me, it was a mess. I mean, a big mess. I hear what we heard tonight, and there's just so much improvement, even over the last 4 or 5 years, and kudos to y'all. I mean, and I'm a person that can speak from experience since I sent my own son to DAP as his principal. So, and yet the experience that our kids are getting now is light years above. It doesn't mean that we still don't need to improve, and I know that y'all are, but I think the system is intentional as far as the kid is intended to be removed for the home campus for a period of time. That's the law. And that's actually beneficial for the home campus, and it's beneficial for the kid. And yet the transition, the BTGs, I think, provide a great segue back to the campus. Whenever the home campus teachers were totally responsible, and I know Dr. Bonner remembers that, many of the people behind, it was a mess trying to get work to and from the campus on time. I mean, they spent all their time just chasing work. And so I think the system now is much more improved than the campus being more responsible in the process. So that's my opinion, but I promise you, I've seen it from a lot of angles.
Is there a way for us to potentially use some use cases this year? Kids who are in DAP, were in DAP, whatever, you guys figured out, and then let's just say, hey, let's pick a kid that went in September, and let's check on that kid, and you guys can redact this information. Check it, pick 5 kids, check on them in December, check on them when they come back. Let's see how they did. If you can do that, and again, it's not going to be perfect because of various circumstances, I think I might have a higher level confidence that they're coming back into the system ready to perform. Here's one other thing I would offer that probably nobody else on the board would agree with. I think when you have AP kids, bring alcohol to school, the biggest consequence for them would be losing the AP course. And sometimes I wonder if we're off on the wrong thing, right? What is the carrot stick, right? Missing a football game is one thing. Missing a 4.0 accelerator in an AP class because he brought alcohol to school, that's a different ball game. And it makes kids think a little bit differently, or you'd hope so. But other than that, what I would say is, I think to your point earlier, I think we should do some campus visits. Love to come out for us to see what's going on, and so I can see a little more sun shining than what I got going on right now. Thank you.
And just let me say, and I totally get your perspective, Mr. Miller. I see a lot of sunshine. I've witnessed kids. I've talked to kids. Y'all have even assigned me to go talk to kids that you've sent to DAP, and I see a lot of sunshine in this program. Now, do they want to be there? No. I mean, stay at their home campus, go to DAP. Do parents want to drive them over there every day? No. So but you're talking about a small percentage of 50,000 kids that have been sent there either in mandatory or discretionary. And I'm telling you, and yet y'all see a very small percentage of even that. I mean, when you talk about 150 kids that he has in DAP right now, and you may hear 3 or 4 level 3 appeals, that's a very small percentage. So I'm telling you, the great majority of parents are appreciative. They're not appreciative initially when they have to get their kid there, but once they do, but I think it'd be great for y'all to experience that, and we'll certainly set that up.
Thank
Great.
you all so much, team.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Dr. Rapp, HB 4545
Yes, let's
update.
switch out. Okay,
Thank y'all.
so I'm going to invite Mr. Harrell and Dr. McDaniel up to talk to you about House Bill 4545. While they are coming up, let me just say that this has been a team effort. So while the two of them are going to be the ones presenting about what we're doing, the school chiefs, along with Ms. Gall and Ms. Seeley, and many learning and teaching team members are really the heroes of helping get House Bill 4545 off the ground. These two lucky people are the ones that get to talk, like I said, get to talk to you about what we're doing, and are the ones that help meet with our campus principals and help implement the things that everybody's working on. They're doing a great job. So I'm going to turn it over to them. The format looks a little bit different than what was turned into, just because we cleaned it up with putting it on the official blue template, but it's the same presentation. All right, and y'all have the clicker up there, and I think Dr. McDaniel's going to start.
All right, good evening. My name is Dr. Lindsay McDaniel, and I'm the Director of Elementary Accelerated Instruction and Virtual Learning.
Hi, I'm Aaron Harrell.
Make sure you
and-
push
push the button, this one on the right. Hi, I'm Aaron Harrell, and I'm an administrator with the Virtual Learning Academy, and I'm also supporting HB 4545 implementation with middle school and high school.
All right, so we're going to get started with a little bit of background for House Bill 4545. So the Texas legislature passed House Bill 4545 during the 87th legislative session just a few months ago. You can see in May 2021 it was voted on the House, or by the House on May 13th, through the Senate on the 27th, and then it was signed with its current wording on May 31st. It was then sent to Governor Abbott, who signed it into law on June 16th, so just a few months ago, and it was effective immediately. While there was a secondary bill, House Bill 233, presented in the second special session, that limited some of the requirements of House Bill 4545, the session ended before it could go through the entire process. So because it was signed into law June 16th, it had to be implemented immediately. So for the 21-22 school year, it's being implemented using the STAR results from spring 21, STAR and EOC results. So we're looking back at the results from before it was made into law in order to figure out which students qualify for House Bill 4545 requirements. So some of the things that are new with House Bill 4545, we have accelerated learning committee meetings and plans. This really replaced the grade placement committee meetings we had for 5th and 8th grade students. But now we have ALC meetings for 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade students, and then plans for all other students. We have accelerated instruction tutoring requirements. While we had tutoring before, this really gave us very clear requirements of what is expected of us with our tutoring. And then parents are able to request teachers for their 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade students in math and reading if they were unsuccessful on the STAR test the previous year. So going into ALC meetings, these Accelerated Learning Committee meetings are held for 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade testers who did not perform satisfactorily on math and or reading STAR tests. Although 5th and 8th grade take other assessments, they take science and social studies, this only applies to math and reading scores. Because we are working based on last year's results, this is really our current 4th, 6th, and 9th grade students based on their 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade STAR test results. So students who were retained in 3rd, 5th, and 8th still qualify and require the ALC meeting, but for the most part, it's our 4th, 6th, and 9th grade students. And then accelerated learning plans are created for all other testers who didn't perform satisfactorily on their STAR or EOC tests. These plans just give us a clear expectation of what we're doing throughout the year to meet the requirements of House Bill 4545 for all of our students. Keep pressing the wrong button. So the accelerated instruction tutoring requirements. Now, whereas the ALC meetings are just for math and reading in 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade, The accelerated instruction tutoring is 30 hours of tutoring for each tested subject area for the students. So, for example, our third grade students take 2 tests. If they're unsuccessful on both tests, that would require 60 hours of accelerated instruction tutoring. However, our 8th grade students who take 4 STAR tests, if they're unsuccessful in all 4, they now require 120 hours of accelerated instruction for those 4 subject areas. These times, like I said, are cumulative. They add up, so it's not just 30 across the board, it's 30 for each test. And this past year was the last year that 4th and 7th grade had a standalone writing test. So TEA has decided to combine those into more of a language arts tutoring as opposed to having 30 hours of reading and 30 hours of writing. There's just 30 hours of accelerated language arts tutoring if they pass or if they were unsuccessful on reading and or writing. And we are using ESSER 3 funds. Each campus decided on a different plan that fit for their campus, for their community, and for their teachers and students. But for those who are deciding to tutor outside of the contract day, they were able to request ESSER 3 funds. These are paid to the teachers, again, working outside of their contract hours. And the campus requesting funding will receive a set amount of money based on a ratio or a formula that for elementary is a little bit different than secondary just because of the way the tutoring is being provided to them. But it's a set allotment that they cannot exceed during the year depending on how many teachers they want to use or how often they're offering tutoring.
Okay, so I'm going to go into information about the plans and the work that's been done for middle school and high school. So we really conceptualized HB 45 as having 4 stages of implementation. Just in reading this and trying to figure out how it was going to be done, it's a lot to wrap your mind around. So we broke it down into sort of 4 chunks to make it more manageable. And the first one is the one of coming up with a list of students who are going to need supplemental accelerated instruction. So that's where we have all the kids who were not successful in STAR, but then we also have to look at all the kids who did not take STAR and then take a couple of extra steps with them to see if there's any other data sources that indicate that they might have performed at the proficient level. Or if we don't have anything suggesting that, then we had to administer a district TEKS-based assessment to them. Once we get past that point, that's when you actually know which students need supplemental accelerated instruction. And so then comes the point at which we have to create the plans and help hold the meetings for those students. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail. These 2, Phase 1 and Phase 2, are in yellow here because this is where the middle schools and the high schools are right now. We've got a lot of them finishing up Phase 1 and moving on into Phase 2. At the conclusion of Phase 2 is when we'll actually have all the information about what supplemental accelerated instruction each kid is going to get so that we can actually go on then to provide it. And after we've completed the plan, that Phase 3 this year, we'll be making some adjustments for next year. And so on this next slide, you can sort of see some of our initial counts here. And these numbers, just a couple of little caveats to those. These do include the 5th grade Spanish versions of the tests, but not STAR Alt 2. I'm going to go on to the next one and just show you high school there. You don't see, there's a small group of kids who were accelerated middle school students who took Algebra 1 and are still currently middle school students who did not pass that, who are not included in these counts, but this is a pretty good estimate of where we are at this point. I do want to show you this next slide because it impresses upon us sort of the complexity of what the campuses are being asked to do. So if you look on that left-hand side, you have the student's current grade level, and you can sort of see there how many different kinds of tests those students would have taken the previous year. You can think about what different combinations of tests those kids might or might not have passed, causing them to need a meeting or not need a meeting. So there's a wide variety of scenarios that we've got here and sort of different things that have to be done depending on the test results that the student had in 2021. You can see there for those current 6th graders and current 9th graders, since we're talking middle and high school students, if they failed that math or reading the previous year as a 5th or 8th grader, that's the kids who actually have to have an accelerated learning committee meeting to make their plan. So here's sort of where we are at this point. We have All the middle and high school campuses have designated staff to oversee House Bill 4545. In all cases, this includes at least an administrator, and for high school, it's commonly also a campus testing coordinator or other staff. Sometimes there's a CR teacher, a credit recovery teacher who's involved. For middle school, since they don't have campus testing coordinators, they have to pull in other staff, sometimes a data specialist if they have one, or sometimes even teachers who might be helping out with implementation. Our staff have been trained for implementation of Phase 1 and Phase 2, and we do send out weekly email updates to kind of keep them apprised of what resources are available and what they should be focusing on at present. That's a big part of overseeing this process, is helping people focus on what's immediately in front of them and not getting too far down the road and thinking about all the details, because it can be overwhelming pretty quickly. We have provided quite a few support materials here for the campuses, and so those are sort of amalgamated together on a Canvas course for HB 4545. We've created forums in Eduphoria Aware to help campuses input those plans and hold those accelerated learning committee meetings. We've created parent letters for communication about the meetings and about the plans. Something that's in the works for Phase 3, which is providing accelerated instruction, is Apex courses being developed by Karen Seeley's team and the curriculum coordinators. The intent here was to provide the campuses with curricular materials so they don't have to author all those themselves. And this really puts us in a position to decide what the format is going to be and to have those conversations about what supplemental accelerated instruction is going to look like for each student. So as I said, campuses are moving through Phase 1. Some are moving on to Phase 2, where they're actually starting to have the meetings and plans. As they wrap up Phase 1, campuses are submitting numbers to us, reporting how many students, or how many basically tests they'll be providing supplemental accelerated instruction for. And I say tests, not students, because a student can have supplemental accelerated instruction for multiple tests that they did not perform satisfactorily on. At the conclusion of Phase 2, when all the plans and the meetings are complete, that's really when we'll have our best grasp of what the staffing needs are. Campuses are starting to wrap their minds around who is going to be providing the supplemental accelerated instruction, but a component of this bill is the ratio of the student-teacher support. And so until all those meetings have transpired, we won't know exactly what is being required of our staff. And the students can receive supplemental accelerated instruction in a variety of formats. We've got in-person options, we've got blended options, and we've got asynchronous options for them. So we are, as we have campuses entering Phase 2, we're making some preparations for Phase 3, which is providing accelerated instruction. At the conclusion of Phase 2, the campuses are going to know basically what their student needs are for supplemental accelerated instruction. So it is at that point that they will submit a cost proposal form requesting ESSER funding for tutors to work outside of contract hours. There's also going to be some upcoming trainings put together by Karen Seeley and the curriculum coordinators. These will be ongoing, as we know campuses are going to need that training at different times, but this will make sure that all those tutors who are going to be utilizing the Apex content will have the appropriate training in order to use that. And that's a component of the bill. The bill stipulates basically that all the tutors have to be trained in the resources that are going to be used. And we should be poised to be in Phase 3 for the middle and high schools January or earlier. So that's kind of where we stand. And now Lindsay's going to talk about elementary.
All right, thank you, Aaron. So at elementary, we kind of have the same phase system. We started in August with a steering committee of 11 principals. In that steering committee, we talked about what are some of the non-negotiables, things that we don't have any option. That includes having 30 hours of instruction, but then there are some things that we could make decisions, bless you, based on the campus. So things like when we offer tutoring, are we going to offer the same tutoring across every campus, or is that something that we can give campuses options based on what they know best, which is their community? And then in August and September, we found our qualifying students who were identified for accelerated instruction. Something that's unique about this year is if you think back to spring 21 testing, a lot of our students who were virtual were given the option to come or to not test, and they were told there would be no repercussions, so we had many students who didn't come test. Now, the bill, the way it's worded, says that students who did not perform satisfactorily do require accelerated instruction. And if you didn't test, you did not perform satisfactorily. You don't have a passing score on the record. So because of that, students who did not have a STAR score at all, we were able to give them a TEKS-aligned assessment. The district was able to choose our assessment and our passing scores. So we used iStation for math and language arts, and if students were on Tier 1, then we said that they mastered the TEKS needed to be successful in their current grade level. Now, students who had a failing score, they had no option of testing out of the program. This is only for students who didn't have a score at all. And then in October, we started our ALC and our ALC ARD meetings. For students served through special ed, they had to have an ARD meeting called to go over the House Bill 4545 requirements. So these meetings were scheduled and begun for our current fourth grade students because those are the only ALC grade level that are currently on our elementary campus. Starting today, actually, the students received access to their Canvas courses. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but they are LISD-created, TEKS-aligned Canvas courses for all of the subject areas that we need in elementary. And then ongoing, we'll have ongoing data collection to ensure the students are making progress, and then, of course, the accelerated instruction tutoring will be occurring throughout this school year. So this is the number of current elementary students who qualify for accelerated instruction. Because we are a couple of months ahead of secondary, we were able to break it down not only based on the tests, but individual students at that grade level that receive some kind of accelerated instruction. You can see the numbers don't add up because not every student needed just math or just reading. So students that needed both were only counted once to find out that overall individual student number. Just to give you kind of a picture of the number of students who would have received this but didn't really qualify for it, all of those numbers were well over 1,000 when we added in the students who were absent from testing. When we removed the students who are Tier 1 in iStation who didn't have a previous STAR score, we removed 1,556 tests, and that removed almost 47,000 hours worth of tutoring instruction. So this is a preview of the elementary Canvas course that me and 2 team members have been creating this school year. We made 7 total courses, and it's one for each of the tests that are given at the elementary level. Our 5th graders for this year are 6th grade, so they fall under Aaron's umbrella, but we are looking towards the future, so we created courses for all 7 tests. And this is an example of what the lesson modules look like. You can see this is a unit from our 3rd grade math TEKS. It is pulled directly from our curriculum. So when our teachers look at it, they're already accustomed to seeing it broken down like this. Something that we wanted to make sure each course included was objectives. What are the students learning in that little piece? And vocabulary, because we know that's a huge piece of education, especially at the elementary level, is getting a lot of that basic vocabulary really ingrained. And then we also have a pretest in every unit. If it has more than one bundle within the unit, then there's a pretest for each bundle. We really thought this was important because we want to make sure we're reaching the students and really meeting their needs. Because these students have already heard all of these TEKS, they are the previous year's TEKS, we wanted to make sure that we're really reinforcing those areas of growth and not just repeating things where they've already mastered some of the skills. So this is kind of a behind-the-scenes snapshot look at one of the Canvas courses. We are relying on something in Canvas called Mastery Paths. This is the pretest that you saw on the previous slide. And depending on the scores the students make on the pretest, it assigns them a different level of work or different amount of lessons to really build in those gaps that they may have. So students who receive anywhere from a 0 to a 5.9 on a 10-point scale, they will complete these 3 lessons and 3 quick checks on the bottom, and then the rest of the lesson, which would be 3 more lessons and quick checks for that set of TEKS. For students who score between a 6 and an 8.9, they won't do all 3 of those extra lessons. They'll just do 2 extra lessons and quick checks. And then students who really show mastery between that 9 and 10-point scale, they really skip a lot of those foundational lessons and jump straight to application, where they're really reading questions and breaking it down because they already understand the basic TEK, but really understanding how to think about it in different ways. And each of the lessons you can see are attached to a quick check because we wanted to make sure students were really being held accountable when they're working asynchronously on a lot of this work. So for each lesson, there's a 3-question quick check that they're able to take as many times as they need. And once they pass the quick check, they can go to the next lesson. We thought this was important because in-person tutors, which we, of course, at elementary are going to have a lot of in-person tutoring, they're able to look at this to find where students are kind of stuck in that loop of they're not able to pass that 3-question quiz. So that's really where the tutor needs to pull them and give them more in-depth tutoring in person. Again, we wanted to make sure that we're really utilizing our staff and all of our resources correctly, so we want to make sure we're really pinpointing where the students need growth.
So one quick point before she turns it over is one of the things we talked to you all about was that we were going to take the opportunity with this bill to have a commitment to developing our own elementary virtual content still. What Dr. McDaniel and those team of teachers has created, other school districts would give their eye teeth to have. I mean, at elementary, you don't see virtual content created the way that they've done this here. And that's a huge shout out to what our elementary learning and teaching team did last school year with virtual, because they did such a good job of building our own content that Dr. McDaniel's team's been able to take that content that's been built. So the campuses are not on their own in terms of what do I use with students for 45-45. In fact, this work will last well beyond 45-45 because we can use it in a variety of ways in a variety of settings. Now, at secondary, you have a lot more options for content support for kids. That doesn't mean that the work on Karen Seeley's teams is any less. It just looks really different because they don't have to create it from the ground up. But huge, huge shout out to the work that's been done and how they're utilizing Canvas to support the kids. And I think I failed to recognize Dr. Talbert in the listing of all the people that have been supporting House Bill 4545, but heavens knows that there's a lot to interpret when it comes to what this means for our special education students as well.
Yeah, and I'd just like to sort of echo what Dr. Rapp said. I mean, these people and Adrienne Gall and her staff and Karen Seeley and her staff are just superstars. I'm telling you, superstars. You know, House Bill 4545, this, in my opinion, is a terrible piece of legislation. It's a one-size-fits-all type menu. It's an equal opportunity thing, that's for sure, because it's elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. And, you know, in a time that you come through a pandemic and you think, okay, let's add even more work to campuses and teachers, besides reading academies and elementary school. I mean, there's not a long line of teachers, I don't care what you pay them, that are looking to do more outside of the school day. They're just trying to make it through the school day. And so I don't know what they're thinking in Austin. And of course, that's always seems to be the case, at least from my perspective. But just kudos to these folks for amazing work.
Well, I want to echo the work because, Lindsay, you're impressive to me anyway, but this is really, really impressive. So my question, kind of, I'm piggybacking off something that Dr. Rapp said, is how does HB 45 affect 504 students who are already receiving services for things like dyslexia and so forth? How does that affect those students who also fall, I just don't know how many hours there are in a day. How many plans can one have?
Realistically, there's no sub-pop that has any kind of loophole to change anything. If a student took Star Alt 2, they still require the ALC ARD meeting if they are 3rd, 5th, or 8th. But they pulled the tutoring requirement for students who took Star Alt 2, but that is the only caveat. Any student, newcomers, 504, served in special ed, they all receive the same requirements.
And Dr. Rupp, is it fair to say in our All-Star programs that we held over this past summer that these are the same students that we identified who needed gaps filled, et cetera?
I think we're definitely ahead of the curve by offering what we did this summer, absolutely. And there could be instances where that work this summer is able to count for some of their hours. The parents have to waive the ratio of the instruction that the bill requires, and that's part of that process. But there are going to be students where they can get some hours based on participating in this summer's programs.
That was my second question. So my next question is will that also apply for next summer, where parents can waive that as well? I'm looking forward. Will that also be an option as well?
What will have to happen as we move forward next summer is really thinking about how do we design the program on the front end to provide the hours that's necessary. So obviously, we didn't have the information completely, but we've talked about, especially I think with grades 5 and 8, that we would try to handle as much of the accelerated instruction in the summer as possible. That helps relieve the campuses a little bit of some of the instruction they would have to provide during the school year, for instance.
And we heard about benchmarks that elementary used iStation, for example. What did we use at secondary, since that was also an option for those, especially for the students who did not take the EOC or the test?
Are you talking about like some data sources that we could use for students to indicate mastery? Is that what you mean?
Yes, because I mean that was an option
Right.
that TA gave, that if they
Yep.
did not take the test, that we could give them, and we use iStation for elementary. I'm asking what we used for secondary.
So we do have a Canvas district assessment that the curriculum coordinators were put together, that basically are TEAC-style questions for our district assessments, but we also had the liberty to utilize some other alternative data sources before we administered those assessments, because in some cases we were looking at administering a very large number of tests to students. Sometimes, if you had an 8th grade student who didn't take any of the tests, that was 4 district assessments that they'd have to take. So we looked at things like for high school, the average of their midterm and final exam score as an indicator. We looked at for resource students who had taken iReady, whether their scores met certain cutoffs there. So we tried to look at other things that we had available that would be indicators that students were on grade level before we just, did all the testing.
Once again, I really appreciate the work. I know you built this in conjunction with what we did virtually, but it really is impressive. And unfortunately, while I think that I wish that legislatures would come and substitute in a classroom so that they could see the end product of some of their legislation.
Thank you both for a great presentation. And the first thing is, after implementation, I would love to continue to receive updates. So of what is going on and how this is progressing. I don't know if you all have already talked about adding those two.
Trust me, you're going to receive a lot of
Okay.
updates.
Okay. Yes, it is required, but just making sure that that it just is, even if it's required, maybe even more, just so that we know how that this is progressing. I really am curious to see this 30 hours and how this all plays out and when it's going to occur. And for me, if it's occurring during the school day, what are we taking away from? And if it occurs after, how does that affect our students, our families? There's just so many questions that I'll echo Ms. Prosnick's sentiment. Did you really think about what you were doing? So it just floods my mind with questions on how this is going to really play out. You've already answered. I was writing yes and no, and on some of my questions I already had. But I just want to thank you And thank you for providing the unique IDs or the unique numbers. I was curious about that. I am curious, though, how those students fall out across the district, and really would even probably not necessary, but would like to delve into how many of those students are hitting more than 2 of those. How many are hitting 3, and then in those cases, if there's more. Anyway, I'm just looking forward to receiving updates and these ARDs that might have to occur. Are we allowed to do those still virtually? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I think most of mine are more statements, but maybe a question in there. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to you, because I know this is not what we thought you would be doing for a job this year. So I just want to say thank you for being flexible and jumping in and doing a bang-up job, it looks like. So thank you for that. The other thing that, sort of a comment, I have a lot of friends that are teachers at different campuses all over the district. And so, sometimes, I like to say, oh, well, how's it going? And a lot of them are just so, they're overwhelmed right now. And I know teachers, that's a common theme. When my mom was a teacher, she was overwhelmed. But I think that this bill is responsible for a lot of that. I really do. And it concerns me, and it just kind of makes me mad a little bit. But I think y'all are doing a good job to try to, make it as easy as possible for the teachers. And, it's funny, as you were going through, for what Dr. Rapp said, as y'all were going through the presentation, and I literally wrote, sell this, with a question mark next to it, because I thought, man, I don't know if that's possible, if we can make money on it, or what, because I was thinking, darn, that's a lot of work that you guys did, and I was, if we're all kind of doing the same thing, and I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there to the universe. I don't know.
We will get Bill Lee involved.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. Okay. There you go. Okay.
I'm being facetious.
Well, okay. I was thinking more of like Mr. Martin, Craig Martin, that could help us sell it, but whatever. Anyway, I guess the last thing, overarching here is, we're doing all this work. We're talking about 30 hours. We're talking about, we're still kind of figuring out exactly when these kids are going to so obviously we've got the staff, that we have to worry about when they're going to do it. But when are the kids going to do it, And how are we going to make them do it? We're not going to be able to make them do it, right? Unless they're at school. And so, I don't know. To me, it's just riddled with issues. Not to take away from any of the work that you guys done. Because, the thing is, I know this is really necessary for some kids, and I'm glad that we have it. These are just problems that I see.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Ms. Lasan, is if you're a ninth grader and you need to do 90 hours, when are you going to do it, and how are we going to be able to force? There's not enough pizza in the world to get all those nice ninth graders up there, and it is absolutely an issue, and it's important to some parents, and to some parents it's not important. How are we going?
Yeah.
I wish the state would figure some of that out.
Well, and this, and I'm glad that we can use ESSER funds. Those aren't going to last forever. How long does this go on? We're already having trouble staffing, positions. Anyway, I'll step off my soapbox.
Ms. Hassett.
I'll step on it.
Okay, great.
Ms. Hassett, it's 8 o'clock, by the way.
Exactly.
Just FYI.
I would just say that latent ambiguity, the bill is written with latent ambiguity, and your timeline on the passage of the bill highlights that. And I also struggle with telling y'all what an awesome job y'all have done. Y'all are awesome, and I want to say that in public because y'all are awesome, but then I'm afraid of the public. I'm afraid of our competitors stealing our awesome people, so it makes me nervous. Okay, I do have several questions. How are we handling the ratio, the limitations on students? How are we making?
Yeah, so ultimately, a lot of that will be handled in the conversations with the parents. in terms of whether they're willing to waive the ratio and allow us to serve students in small groups. So until we make it through all of those plans, we're not for sure how many students will need to be served in 3 to 1 versus 10, 15 to 1. Am I about ballparking it right? Ultimately, we believe there's better power in small group learning. So a group of 3 really is not one of the better formats we would suggest, and we're hopeful that many parents will allow us to serve their students with other size groups of children.
How are we handling teacher selection from parents?
Well, ultimately, we didn't have a lot of parents request people coming into this school year. Obviously, going into next school year, should we have a request based on our need to advertise for that, then we will understand it, take that into consideration. I do believe the bill still gives us the flexibility to make the decision at the end of the day, but we'll absolutely take a look at any request that parents make and see what we
Especially
can
if
do.
they all ask for one, then how do we abide by the numbers, ratio, timeline?
Right, adds a little bit more work there for sure.
Do we have pre-tests for secondary, like we do for elementary, during the instruction?
No, we do not have pretests built into the Apex courses.
Okay. So they have to sit through the TEKS that they might already have mastered until they...
Yes, so they'll have to go through sequentially the content that's in there, but I mean, if you're a student who is familiar with the content, it's a lot faster going than if, it's something that you struggled with and need to spend a little bit more time with.
How much do we do asynchronous versus synchronous when we're doing tutoring? What's the ratio that we're going to do async to sync?
That hasn't really been, that's really kind of for the Accelerated Learning Committee to decide, or for the school to decide how they want to hash that out. There are certainly some students who probably for scheduling reasons will want to do as much of that asynchronously as possible. But for those who want that in-person touch, then we can certainly provide that as well. But again, that's going to have to be made by that's going to have to be decided by the ALC meeting or the campus that's making the plans.
And at the elementary level, it's going to be really based on the student. I'm sure everyone will be touched at some point with in-person tutoring just because elementary is a different level, more of a foundational education. A lot of the Canvas course is being used to figure out where the student really needs that in-person tutoring. So they may all start asynchronously, even if they're working on it on campus during their tutoring time at the beginning, until they hit that loop where they're struggling, and then they'll have that in-person tutoring. So a majority of students, and when I say majority, I mean probably 90 to 95% of the students will have some kind of in-person tutoring, but they do have Canvas as a resource, especially for those who can't stay after school, but they still need that instruction.
That was my other one. How are we dealing with transportation for elementary in particular for Accelerated?
So we've had about 3 schools that said that they may request transportation. We were waiting to figure out how much of the ESSER budget would be needed at high school before we could offer the funding for transportation. So at this time, we're not offering any ESSER 3 funds for transportation, but we may be able to use Title I funds because we wouldn't be offering the ESSER funds to anybody. So Title I funds could be used because we're not replacing any ESSER funds with it. It's something that Title I schools would be able to offer with their funding if they had that funding.
Okay. We already spoke a little bit about teachers, so how are we magically finding teachers in the environment that we have to finish out the tutoring?
So when I had the steering committee, that was one thing we talked about. Do we want to give teachers first dibs, knowing that some will jump on it and some won't? And across the board, they all said we want our teachers to do it because they know the kids, they know the TEKS, they know the curriculum, which makes the most sense. So I have had elementary staff already chosen across all 39 impacted campuses. And I've only had 1 or 2 campuses reach out to say that they were struggling to find people that wanted to work after hours. But because of that, some of them reworked the schedule, so more tutoring is happening during the contract day. So teachers aren't having to work after their 3:45 contract day.
And of course, if we need to, we can post jobs for tutors because if a campus is not able to find teachers, Just like we post jobs for Avid tutoring, let's say, we can post a job for a tutor, hire them for a specific amount of time. We'll have to train them, of course. And we've kind of been talking about that because that may be a reality at secondary a little bit more than what we're seeing have happen at elementary. Just depends on how those numbers and plans get finalized.
Okay. And then with the transition between fifth and sixth and seventh, eighth and ninth, how are we making sure that, how are we passing along the information of that student to the next level of education for that child?
So for this year, we're really starting kind of behind the eight ball. House Bill 4545 really says that all of the ALC meetings have to be done before the school year starts. Obviously, this year, that didn't go into effect because we didn't even receive what the documentation should look like until August. So next year, like Dr. Rapp was saying, we're going to try to get all of that paperwork in place beforehand, and luckily campuses will have a better grasp on what they can offer and really what they can do day to day to meet the needs of these students. So we're hoping to have all of those plans done in the summer and as many of the hours completed in the summer as possible, so students who are going to that next grade level aren't bringing with them 90 hours of required tutoring.
So the first chunk will be done by the originating campus, and then the latter chunk will be done by the receiving
That's
campus.
the current goal.
Okay.
The only kind of speed bump that we're having is when we're going to receive those STAR results back.
Yeah.
Because at the elementary level, students can STAR test until May 20th, and then they get out of school May 24th. So having ALC meetings for all 3rd and 5th grade students who are unsuccessful and 4th grade students who were not successful in 3rd grade and then not successful in 4th grade have to have an ALC meeting to address that also. So just trying to figure out as you can see, having over 1,000 students at each grade level, and then when you multiply that times 2 grade levels, plus the students who are unsuccessful for a subsequent year, just trying to get all of those meetings completed in time to do all of the tutoring in the summer is what we're trying to figure out the scheduling and the timing of all of that, just because we can't start it until we get those STAR results back.
Okay. Last question, and this is just a pie-in-the-sky question. I know you won't have an answer, but it's been bugging me. When we change the STAR format, more students will most likely end up failing. How are we going to deal with that? There'll probably be a significant amount of students that start failing because of the new and unique way that TEA is going to test.
And that's something unique to our Canvas course is we're able to ask the pre-test questions, the post-test questions, and the quick checks. We're able to ask them in different ways. The way that STAR is moving, where they're having multiple answers and hotspots and fill in the blank, we're able to create our assessments in that way.
Okay.
So at least students who maybe struggled beforehand, they're able to have some practice with those types of questions. Obviously, that's not going to reach everybody all at once, but that was something that we took into account when creating the courses because we had ownership over it. We were able to create what we wanted out of it.
What about an Apex, though? Because we don't have as much.
I would say that is something that we can look into. We do have the ability to use some of that prescriptive testing. It's just not something that we're using at this time. If that, going forward, as we hit that phase 4 and make those adjustments for next year, that's something we can look into.
The bill's got room for a lot of improvement when it comes to legislative advocacy, and that would definitely be one of those items as well.
I guess that's my last real one, is we need a list of how we can improve 4545 so we can start having better conversations with our elected officials. So that'd be great.
Not
Would you
a
provide that list?
problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cox?
Well, I think my fellow board members have addressed their frustration about this lovely House bill, but I think Dr. Rapp said it best, that LISD is on the forefront. So, Dr. McDaniel, Mr. Harrell, and the entire staff, teachers, everybody, we are an amazing district, and we always are on the forefront. So I'm very appreciative of you and the people in this room and all the hard work that goes into this. And maybe, yes, as Ms. Hassett alluded to, maybe you can provide some talking points and maybe a dissertation so we can send that up to Austin to show them how maybe they can read some material on how this is probably not very effective. But my two questions go more from a funding perspective. So in Canvas, is this something that, as a district, we had already paid for in the application, or was it additional funding that we're going to need to continue that? I love that we're utilizing Canvas to its fullest potential.
Yeah, no, we are, since we already paid for Canvas, we are all good on that, and all the content's ours that we're putting inside of it. So there's no additional cost there.
Okay, that's fantastic. So I guess, Dr. Rogers, then when the ESSER funds go away, what does this look like for our budget? Because I'm sure it'll be an unfunded mandate.
Yeah, I'm looking for a rainbow. You know, I think that's a great question. I think it's very cost prohibitive when you're talking about that many hours of tutorials, even, you know, and yet we are so fortunate in LISD to have devices that kids have access to have platforms like Canvas. I mean, can you imagine districts that don't have those kind of tools? And I mean, we certainly are going to have to look hard, fast and hard at impact long term as far as financially.
Yes, thank you. Because to go back to Ms. Hassett's question, I think that will be something, if the test changes, what this will look like, because this could be a huge budget shortfall that the district could be facing. So, thank you, Austin.
Dr. Bonner.
I think you all buried the lead. Maybe your first slide should have been what this could have looked like in a typical personnel-intensive instructional format. And let me give you what I'm saying. If my Canton High School math is correct down here, it looks like we have 366 36-week years that we could have employed a teacher in one-on-one instruction to the kids who need it. Is my math right there, give or take? Is that where y'all, I mean, is that kind of where you came up with? Yeah. And so, Angie, to your question, if you bundled up 5 of those kids and did 1-on-5 instruction, right, and you paid that person $65,000, you're looking at about $4.75 million, if my math is right. So y'all check me on the math. I think that would have maybe made a huge impact on the public. Here's what this bill resulted in if we did it traditionally, and here's why we can't. And thank goodness we have iPads, and thank goodness we have Canvas, and thank goodness we have all the technology and the electronic means to do what you all have built, which is amazing. So I was listening, and I think I heard and understood most of what you're doing, but on the online version of things where the kids are testing out of these their needs, who's monitoring that?
So every campus has either a couple of teachers monitoring or entire grade levels of teachers monitoring. That's something that is great about Canvas is we can assign as many teachers as we want to students. So we created what are called blueprint courses that are kind of the baseline, and then we were able to share it out with all 39 campuses. Mm-hmm. So the campuses have their own copy of the course, and they're able to add teachers. I added all the administrators to the course. So the school assigned teachers. Some schools thought it was a better use of their resources to assign 1 or 2 teachers who are able to then translate the needs of the students out to tutors. And then some are having all of their students that are in their classroom assigned to them so they're able to keep up with it. So the tutors are able to look at it as a campus.
Okay. And then have you gotten, well, we haven't implemented yet at secondary. Are we implementing at elementary?
Today was the first day that they were able to get
that.
in.
Okay, so have you gotten any pushback from parents on the use of an electronic accelerated instruction?
No, we've gotten pushback on students requiring accelerated instruction at all, but the way that we're offering it, we haven't had any pushback.
Okay.
If anything, it's an option for schools to offer for parents that say they can't keep their student after school, they can't bring them before school. It's an option that they're able to take and utilize at any point.
Okay. And Aaron, I guess that you're going to be mimicking the high school program after the great program that's been designed at elementary. Is that pretty much it?
As soon as I get my team of curriculum writers, I'll get right on that.
Outstanding. And there's only there is a dissertation there, Aaron, so it sounds like it's yours. Thank y'all.
Thank you, guys. Great work. Obviously, we've heard about this coming to this point. We've seen some updates and letters, and I'm sure we're going to see some more updates. And so thanks for all you've done to get us here in the unfortunate unfunded mandate that we're in, but look forward to you guys excelling on behalf of our students. Thank you.
Thank y'all very much.
All right, so we have one last topic tonight, and this is going to end in a showstopper for sure. So, this team of people's coming up, and pre-COVID, we had an opportunity to present some technology and learning integration. What the learning and teaching team's doing to collaborate within itself with digital learning and elementary curriculum to support our students having robust learning experiences with our devices, and talk about great work that they've created, and they're going to share that with you tonight. So I'm going to kick it off to them.
All right, so thank you for having us. We are happy to be able to talk to you about the integration approach in the elementary world when it comes to content and technology TEKS, and trying to help our students to become producers versus just consumers. And we're going to showcase and demonstrate some of that for you tonight. I'd just like to start by letting everyone introduce themselves and let you know who they are and what they do for us. And we are down a man. Jennifer Kelly was not able to be with us tonight, our new math administrator.
Good evening, Brandy Haricki, Interim Director of Digital Learning.
Hi, I'm Kathy Fields, Instructional Technology Facilitator for 9 of our elementary schools.
Hi, Karen Spalding, Executive Director for Elementary Curriculum and Programs.
Renee Martz, Elementary Science Administrator.
Okay, so in learning and teaching, we are very proud of the internal staff that we have that's able to design rigorous and relevant curriculum across the contents. And we're going to showcase, as I said, our incorporation of the technology TEKS. We are really fortunate to have the experts in our district that design and write curriculum and write some model lessons that I'm pretty sure could also be sold to other districts. And so we do that utilizing both the campus staff and ourselves, and we're going to be able to share with you how these approaches are integrated through some stations in math tonight, and also talk a little bit about where else you can see them within our curriculum. First, Ms. Haricki is going to share with you background knowledge on the technology TEKS and expectations.
All right, so what you see is the K through 8 strands. There are 6 strands that are through the technology application standards. What's unique to the technology application standards is the way the state requires them being addressed. So for instance, pre-K has guidelines through technology integration. In elementary, we have K2, 3-5 bands. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade each have their own set of standards, where in high school they're integrated into different content areas. So what we are going to do tonight is just highlight some of the great things that are taking place in our elementary classrooms. As you know, technology has changed our classroom, and so having these standards and having the devices has really impacted what's going on in our classrooms. As you can tell through this, these are 2 of the standards. The device makes a difference in how this standard is taught in the classroom. So for example, when elementary students had Chromebooks, the way we would teach and address those standards will look different than having the device of an iPad. So take a minute, just look at these 2 standards. Kind of lengthy. These are 2 standards that we will address tonight in what a kindergarten student may produce highlighting these standards. As you can see, tonight adults have created a media to present to an audience. We have formatted applications and digital tools. So these are real-world applications of using devices and technology that we're asking our kindergarten students to do.
So all of the different content areas have partnered with digital learning in work similar to this, but tonight we're going to highlight the technology and the integration that's in our math curriculum. Currently, we have 59 unique TEKS and Tech math stations embedded into our curriculum, and we're always looking for opportunities to add more. As you can see from the data here in the first bullet, we've embedded many of our technology application and math standards strategically into the different stations. This gives our students authentic ways to practice and develop mastery of the state standards through engaging learning experiences. When these stations were originally created, we provided teachers with an opportunity to come and experience them personally on a hands-on training. And since then, we've continued to provide opportunities for teachers to experience sessions that allow them to know how to utilize these in their classrooms. We're constantly reminding teachers that they have the support of their math learning facilitators and their instructional technology facilitators as partners with them that can come and model how these stations work in their classrooms or even co-teach with them as they experience these with their students. In an effort to support our incredibly hardworking teachers that we've talked about many times tonight, we're providing these ready-made TEKS-aligned stations every single 9 weeks, and teachers can use the stations from previous 9 weeks to differentiate for students who need continual practice of these concepts. So in just a moment, you are going to get to experience a kindergarten TEKS and Tech math station. This is just one of the 59 stations that we currently have embedded in our curriculum. And so we're going to pass these envelopes out to you, and in that envelope you'll find the station and all the materials needed to experience it.
They're a little bit loud, that's okay. This station being passed out is similar to stations that you've probably seen as you've been visiting elementary campuses around the district. Every math teacher in grades K through 5 have access to these stations through the LISD math curriculum. As we began creating the stations, it was important for us to provide teachers with the goal and the vision of the experience. So in order to do this, we added a detailed teacher background page to each station that we would like to walk you through. So in your packet, go ahead, that Velcro is going to be loud, but it's okay. In your packet, go ahead and remove the station cards. And we'd first like for you to look at the background page and follow along with us as we highlight some of the key look-fors we want teachers to notice while they're preparing and teaching the stations with students.
So you'll notice at the top there's a green star placed next to the student sample that we provide teachers. This is intended to provide them with an idea of what the end product may look like, basically an exemplar, so that they know what to expect from what students will produce. And then next to the yellow star, you can see that math experts came together to include thoughts that were relevant to this station and to demonstrate what the instructional implications are from that sample that can be gathered by a teacher and how they might use them to differentiate instruction for that student moving forward.
So then digital learning, experts carefully selected which apps and tools are the most developmentally appropriate for our students and when those are introduced to best highlight the math and the technology TEKS. So digital citizenship is of the utmost importance in LISD, and it's addressed in every station, whether it's math or any other content. You'll notice this is highlighted by the orange star on the teacher background document. Throughout the station, you'll also see pink stars. These are showing the math and technology application TEKS. They're located on the teacher document background page, as well as, if you look at your station card, it's at the bottom of the student cards on both sides, so that we keep in mind the integration of the technology, the purpose of the workstation, the math TEKS, and they're visible for any walkthrough or classroom visits.
So in a closer look at the station card, that is the second one in your packet, you'll notice that one side has the math instructions needed for the students at the station, and the other side has the technology instructions. Both sides you'll see has a little blue star, which is going to point your attention to some sentence stems that we provide that were carefully chosen to support our students in their responses. This is going to encourage higher order thinking and the use of academic vocabulary as they talk while they learn.
As you look at the station, the implementation is easy. It has step-by-step instructions, photos of the math and the technology tools, audio support for our kindergartners. All of the 59 stations are also translated in Spanish. You also have a Spanish card there that's been marked with the stars as well. And all of these stations are ready for immediate implementation for all teachers. We were very intentional when we were planning these to use Google Slides so that they are editable by the teacher for classroom personalization. We're very proud of the 59 stations that are ready for use in classrooms today. These were all created in-house by the LISD Learning and Teaching team.
So if you were all kindergartners in my class, this would be the time where I ask you to take out your materials, and we would start walking through the math portion of the card. I might model for you the directions, and we would experience this together. So the instructions in this particular station would involve you working with a partner, and I'd ask the first partner to draw a card, and whatever quantity is on that card, they would actually then create that number concretely with their bears. So make your card match the number of bears that you've created, and then your partner would draw a different digit card, and they would represent the blankets for their bears with the color tiles being used. And then those two partners would work together to try and decide who has more, blankets or bears, by making a match. Each blanket goes to each bear, and then you can decide from that matching experience very concretely whether you have more blankets in your quantity or more bears, thus showing concretely exactly your understanding of comparing numbers. And then I would want to draw students' attention to the sentence stems so that as they're talking about their learning, they're using that language to justify their thinking, and then using the tech tool to capture that so that I, the teacher, can capture their understanding and prove their ability to compare numbers.
So once the students finish the math portion of the station, they're going to use the Chatter Kids app to demonstrate the understanding of the math concept. So they'd flip their card to see their technology instructions, and they would use the information to justify and to explain their thinking. The iPads provide and encourage the visible thinking of the students while they're in stations and also while they're in independent work. So what we'd like for you to do is we would like for you to watch a kindergarten artifact from one of our LISD kindergarten classrooms.
My name is Corbin. My name is Brooklyn. We know that 3 is less than 10 because if you had 10 bears and 3 blankets, there would be some bears left without blanket. So I know 3 is less than 10.
Isn't that just precious? I could listen to that all night. So hopefully tonight we were able to showcase for you some of the work and resources that goes into the instruction that leads to some of our products, such as these. This really could not be possible without the devices that we were provided by our supportive community, as well as the collaboration that everyone up here has talked about tonight between LISD teachers and the learning and teaching staff, really coming together to create what we call an educative curriculum, where brand new teacher can go through the curriculum, can see this, can learn from it. They can make copies from it to make their own and differentiate for their students. To really put into place what we have up here on the slide, providing engaging, innovative, profound, TEKS-aligned experiences for all of our students that are differentiated in nature, and also allow that opportunity for students to be able to create and be producers instead of just passive consumers of the technology and just even the math content. So tonight, we got a chance to showcase some of the things that we have in math, but we have these in all of our content areas in different ways. For example, for science, there's an example here. The format is very similar for the teachers with the exemplar, with the TEKS standards, the science thoughts behind it, the technology integration pieces that show up within our science performance task that we have in K-5 science. We also have our English language arts literacy tech stations that are available, and there's an example there again using that same format. And then we're also integrating those technology TEKS within our gifted and talented digital notebooks.
I'm really proud of the learning and teaching team. The production of these high-quality, ready-made resources is just phenomenal, that teachers can access and seamlessly integrate their technology and application standards right within our curriculum. This good work allows our teachers to enhance the student experience by highlighting future-ready skills in their digital citizenship. And the collaboration that has taken place across the content areas and programs really allows us to support teachers in the customization of their instruction for all of our different and unique types of learners while still holding our high expectations to all students. This work is really representative of the quality of the kinds of projects that you'll find in our curriculum available for our teachers every day, provided by the learning and teaching team. So we thank you for the opportunity to share a TEKS and Tech Math Learning Station with you. Aren't you proud of our kindergartners?
Absolutely. And board, you know, we talked about superstars. You have in front of you some more of our superstars, and you know, to think that that's a kindergarten. Our kindergartners are doing that level of work is just incredible. And once again, we're appreciative of the tools that our kids have access to. So, with that, we'll take some questions.
Well, my cloud emoji went to a smiley emoji, so I think that's good. Ms. Sells, are you next?
How do teachers access these? Are these on campus, classroom? Can you kind of talk about that? How many of these do we use in the district? How is that process?
So teachers have access to all of the stations in each curriculum level through either the Canvas curriculum course. Also, with our facilitators, we will offer to bring, we'll print, we'll provide anything that we can. We don't try to make a lot of modifications because we do want teachers to be able to do it. So if a teacher's already printed it, we try to suggest management things like putting it in a sleeve so that they can use it year over year. So we're not printing, and we're being good stewards of those resources as well. So we share it through all the different ways that we can.
And even like the little pieces and things like that.
Oh, the
I mean, even to
manipulatives?
that little detail, it's just fascinating to me that something like this could come together to be used by our students, and yet when you're on those campuses and you see those students and how they work and how their little minds, you know, create and stuff, this is just fascinating to me. So just could you walk me through that?
Yeah, I can let Ms. Spalding talk about the math manipulatives, but I will say that when we went to create this a few years ago, it's what do teachers have access to that we can use, not what could we give them. And so for the app, I'll speak to the apps, we only use apps that are allowed in the elementary app store that I and my team vet to make sure that they are aligned. And then we also look at what that app allows the student to do and what standards that fits. But you want to talk about the math?
Yeah, our schools are rich with math manipulatives, and And so teachers have the tools that are referenced in our station work in their classrooms. Our coaches, one of the things our coaches, our learning facilitators can do to help a teacher be well organized is to think through what good systems might they use in their classrooms to have manipulatives at the ready for their students. And so in some of our classrooms that looks like, well, in some of our classrooms right now, in light of COVID mitigations, that might look like individual sets in baggies for students so that they continue to use the same manipulatives over and over again. Pre-COVID, that might have looked like tubs of materials that are at student level, at student reach, so that they're easily accessible. And then in stations like this, we help teachers think about how they might get organized so that a station has just the pieces that a student would need to be ready to use. So pre-organizing baggies with 10 bears so they don't have more bears than they need for this experience might be a good way to prep. And then some cases our parent volunteers help them pre-make those stations so that they're ready to go. There's a lot of different ways for a teacher to stay organized, but all of that helps make the student classroom experience flow nicely so that we don't lose time in transition for our students.
One thing I think just really important to touch on is, you think student technology in the classroom, what a teacher would have to do to teach the technology application TEKS, and of course those have changed over time. We'd have to stop, go to the computer lab, do something there. So I couldn't take that moment with the bears and the blankets and turn that into production of learning, because maybe my technology day wasn't close to my bear and my blanket day, right? So it's just so interesting to think about how now I'm teaching the math, and in real time as I'm teaching the math, I'm able to have the students produce that learning instantly through the resources they have available to them.
And then just one other question. Are we doing any measurements after? Do you understand? I mean, do we have classrooms that use more than others of these type things? And are we doing any comparisons, or even just those testimonials from the teachers? And yeah, I mean, it's a TEK, but right, they're all doing it. But I'm just fascinated by the little bears and how you could do something a little different. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. It's not making sense to you. Anyway, yeah. I mean, it's a TEKS, but they...
Okay. I wouldn't say that we're comparing and contrasting those that do versus those that don't, because our high expectation is that you utilize the curriculum and the standards the way that it's written.
That's kind of what I was asking is because this is fascinating to me, and I can see how this could trigger a child's mind for a love of math, where maybe just doing a TEKS on paper, you could do the same TEKS, correct, without these manipulatives. And
we really reinforce that conceptual understanding and the developmental appropriateness of utilizing manipulatives in order to get to where you're critically thinking without those. But that's a stage of learning, and we really reinforce that as a pedagogical best practice.
Okay. And that's kind of what I was leading at, is that making sure that we're getting that consistency on all of our students being able to access this type of learning. And I think that's just more of my goal there. And thank you all. This is great. And hands-on for us is high on my list. Thank you.
Notice you all got excited to have hands-on, so it doesn't matter the age. It's still important.
And Ms. Sells, I know what I'm going to get you for Christmas, some bear manipulatives. So,
Allison?
So I don't really have any questions, but I just kind of want to reiterate that it is fun to actually see what's actually going on in the classroom, what they're actually, looking at and doing, and so I appreciate that, and thanks for everything.
I think this is fabulous. I love that you have provided a resource that makes a teacher's job easier, combining both of the, do y'all say even tech and text? Do y'all say the text instead of the TEKS? I've got a lot of teacher friends who argue with me on that one. And this looks like a Pinterest board on steroids. So I think that's just awesome, because that's what I know a lot of my friends love to go look at what those are available. So this is just awesome. How did the teachers find out about this?
So these are actually written into the curriculum, and we write in UBD 2.0. So you've got stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and if they are going to look at the best practices, they're already built in there. And like somebody said earlier, these could be something that is a part of the learning process within that unit, or it could be something that's put into a station after the fact to practice the skill later as well.
And if I'm a new teacher who's overwhelmed with everything and haven't quite looked at that particular area, how do I find that? Mentor teachers are also helping, probably?
Yes, and of course we've got our 3-year process of onboarding teachers with the professional learning office, and then we have our facilitators who know those lists of new teachers, and we try our very best to get in and get with them. And then with the Time for Math that's going on this year, we're also able to get ahead of the units and make sure that they're understanding of what's available for them.
Okay. And then last, what does this look like in secondary? It doesn't have cute little bears and blankets, unfortunately for Mrs. Sells.
Lots of integration, but more appropriate for their age level. Just as Dr. Rapp was saying, the fact that we don't have to go to a computer lab to learn it means that we can learn how to do both, how to increase our technology skills at the same time that we're increasing our content skills.
But how are you helping teachers make their job easier with combining both the TEKS and the
Great
tech?
curriculum writing and collaboration with the instructional technology team.
Still
So they
lives
have
within the
teams
same
that
area.
that do very similar work.
Okay, thank you. Great job.
Angie.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is great. And we all like our typical kindergartners right when we got the packet. So, but anyway, it was great. So I appreciate the fact that we're trying to reduce and reuse. So I'm going to encourage the district to stop doing these for us and put them on the computer so we can reduce and reuse our cost as well.
We can do that.
Yes, because
We
many
can
a
do
times we want the PowerPoint sent to us anyway, so we don't have to keep printing paperwork for our board. It'd save us some money. So just my little comment, my 2 cents. But my question is about digital citizenship. This is something I'm very passionate about, not just in kindergarten, but everywhere, because we all know, we talked about it in the DAP thing, people getting on social media. So we cannot reiterate this enough. So I know it was in the form, but are we reiterating this all the time as our teachers about, because as little kids, my little nephew does it, who's like 3, he's a button pusher, he just likes to click all the buttons and like to try all the things out. So how are we continuing that message to our students, not just in kindergarten, but on?
So in 4th through 7th grade, I know y'all are very much aware that we have the required digital citizenship lessons. Also, that every elementary and every middle school is a Common Sense Media recognized campus, meaning they have done those lessons and additional ones to continue that good teaching practices, balance with technology, those types of lessons. Also, our standards require digital citizenship as a piece, so all teachers are required to teach that, and so we create supports and lessons to make sure that those students get that. We're rolling into high school, so high school right now is on the path for becoming Common Sense recognized campuses themselves, because we know that it's not a one-time lesson. It really is something that impacts every student at every grade level. And even parents, right? So we're trying to engage our community in that learning. And we already have one high school that's become recognized, and we are supporting Flower Mound High School. And we are now supporting the rest of them on that journey as well, because it is something that's so important to you all and to our community and to us. So thank you.
The only thing that I would add to that is that we've also worked with K through 3 and really embedded it within the science curriculum. Within our process standards, it talks about using scientific tools, and one of our scientific tools is also our digital technology that we're utilizing. And so when we're going over how we're using hand lenses and triple beam balances and things like that, we're also bringing in that piece and taking the time to build it within science to then go through those digital citizenship lessons of how are we using our science tool appropriately.
Buddy?
I'll have to take a pass, but I'm sure it was awesome.
Ms. Prosnick?
All I could think about was how this has changed since I was at Donald Elementary in 2014, when they were a pilot campus with the iPads. And I saw a lesson there. Anyone's heard me talk has heard me talk about it. It was an amazing lesson where they used a video, and the kids had to watch it twice and take notes while they watched it, and then turn their iPads over and write a paragraph about it, which I thought was a really magnificent lesson, 4th grade, because it was about note-taking, something I still use to this day, and it was about using the technology. And it just shows that the one thing that we have never been, especially where technology is we've never stood in concrete shoes as a district, and that we've always grown with the technology, and we've always used the latest and the greatest to not change how we teach, but as you put it, to embed and to enrich. I use technology every day in my life, not just a pen, which is also technology. And I think it's important that how you have done it and integrated. I'm very worried about all the bears that don't have blankets. But I know that they will get covered eventually. But I just wanted to say thank you. I know this has been a long journey for the district, and I want to thank you for not only going on that journey, but making it beneficial for students in the classroom.
And I would just like to mention Lindsay Ferguson, who is the Dean of Instruction at Lewisville Elementary, was instrumental in a lot of this as well.
Outstanding, thank you. Hey, you guys smile a lot. It's great. We're going to finish on that note. As a congratulations, thank you for your work and the enthusiasm you bring to it. And if we could keep these, and I may ask Dr. Rapp for the other 68, because Elaine is a kindergartner. So thank you for that, and I hope you all have a good week.
Thank you.
We'll now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071 and 072. The time is 8:45 p.m. 8:49 p.m.
You can adjourn without waiting.
If there's, well, we're back in open session, having returned from closed session. The time is 9:21. If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 9:21.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.